Hey, today's episode is brought to you by sunsetlakesebede.com. Use the code LEFTISBEST. You will get 20% off. This is a big sign. Sunsetlakesebede.com. They've rolled out some new tinctures lately. They've got a great one with sebede and sebean. I don't know how to do that. But it is a nighttime one. It really is great for sleeping if you're not into their tincture with melatonin. But they have other tinctures. They have great gummies. This is just happens to be the one that I just took, a focus gummy with sebede, lion's mane, and cordyceps. They also have sleep gummies with melatonin. They have relax gummies. They've got some gummies with a little bit of THC, so things can get a little weirder for you. They also have smokables and pre-rolls and keef. They have salves and lotion for your dry skin. They have sebede fudge and sebede coffee. Honestly, great products, all of them. They're all third-party tested. They have great business practices, $20 minimum wage, mostly employee-owned company up outside of Burlington, you know, a bunch of Bernie bros. And they also have great farming practices. They practice integrated pest management. They don't use any pesticides. They use regenerative farming program that they developed with the University of Vermont up there. And they're movement partners. They have donated literally thousands, tens of thousands of dollars to things like strike relief funds and food pantries and refugee resettlement and carceral reform and Give Directly and Planned Parenthood and relief when they had floods. All around, great company, great product. sunsetlakesebede.com. Use the code LEFTISBEST for 20% off. And now for the show.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder, where every day's Casual Friday. That means Monday is Casual Monday. Tuesday, Casual Tuesday. Wednesday, Casual Hump Day. Thursday, Casual Thurs. That's what we call it. And Friday, Casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
It is Friday, January 26th, 2024. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, the proprietor of the Uber blog Hullabaloo, Digby, will join us. You may know her as Heather Parton, writer at salon.com. Also on the program today, the International Court of Justice stops short of calling for a ceasefire, but says a genocide case goes forward, and Israel must take all means possible and measures possible to prevent genocide and report back on how they're doing. Biden administration starting to realize, meanwhile, that supporting genocide is increasingly unpopular in this country.
What?
Trump torpedoes any deal on immigration as McConnell looks feckless. And in what Bill McKibben's called the biggest thing a U.S. president has done to the fossil fuel industry, the Biden administration freezes gas export licenses in a major win for climate activists. Also on the program today, Matt Gaetz' ideological move to oust Kevin McCarthy turns out to be a way of avoiding an ethics investigation, which seems to be heating up. Republicans block renewal of funding for the Affordable Internet Program, providing 23 million households in this country with affordable internet. Today is the deadline for Texas to accept it is part of the United States. as its border fight continues. The Republican National Committee nearly anoints Trump nominee officially, but halts when Trump says, too soon. Give me another week. And Michigan's Governor Whitmer vows to provide preschool, universal preschool, and to expand free community college to everyone. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is Casual Friday. Emma Vigland.
Yes, it is. Hello.
We mentioned that we were planning to had scheduled to have Ofer Kasif, member of the Israeli Knesset, who's, I guess, facing impeachment proceedings there because he is not in favor of the ongoing genocide that is taking place now. But he is also a party to this ICJ case. Filing, I guess, like the function of functionally like an amicus brief with South Africa. And so he had to cancel last minute, but we are going to have him on soon. But nevertheless, this is a big story. And it is really, at the very least, I mean, the idea of South Africa bringing this case was poo-pooed in a lot of circles, and that is no longer the case. The case is adjudicated, remember, by judges from various countries around the world. Now, they're not supposed to be representing their countries, but you had a former Supreme Court justice from Israel is one of the adjudicators. And then, judges all around. So this is not as so easily dismissed as, we might have heard if it was like the UN General Assembly, let's say.
Especially also because it was an overwhelming majority in terms of like the vote in favor of the accusations being plausible by South Africa.
Yeah, understand. This case was always more of like the functional equivalent of like enjoining the Israelis from continuing the war because it constituted genocide. The court did not go as far as saying ceasefire, but they did say there's a deep implication that there's a danger of genocide when they are saying things like, you need to make sure that your soldiers are not committing genocide. You need to make sure that there's more humanitarian aid getting in. You need to make sure that you're killing less civilians. All of these things, and they're required to come back in a month and provide a progress report on this. All of these things to be implemented essentially will call for, if not a full ceasefire, but pretty darn close.
A lot of experts are saying that it is a bit disappointing that there's not a ceasefire measure, but there wasn't one in Myanmar. That it was ruled in Russia and Russia's invasion of Ukraine, but that's not a genocide case. And I recommend a thread on this by Nimer Soltani, who's a legal writer, that essentially courts and judges generally don't like to rule on things that are not enforceable, really, from their kind of structural body. And a ceasefire is, I guess, something that gets delineated and argued over between the parties involved, potentially. But overall, it's a very important and good ruling.
Here is Naledi Pandor, South African foreign minister, speaking outside The Hague, just, hours ago.
I believe that in exercising the order, there would have to be a ceasefire. Without it, the order doesn't actually work. I would have wanted a ceasefire.
They didn't specifically call.
No, they didn't.
Are you disappointed that they didn't specify that?
I have no way that I'm going to say I'm disappointed. I hoped for it, but the fact of delivering humanitarian aid, the fact of taking measures, that reduce the levels of harm against persons who have no role in what Israel is combating, for me, requires a ceasefire. And I believe Israel would have to attend to how it conducts its search for the hostages and for those Hamas individuals who carried out the October 7 attack.
Now, the immediate implications of this are going to be things like, and there are ongoing negotiations right now, and supposedly Hamas and Israel are pretty close to a month-long, maybe, or maybe 2 months long ceasefire. That's going to put pressure on Israel. It's going to put pressure on the United States. It's going to also we're going to start to see proceedings within different Western countries based upon this ruling going forward. You're going to see a revival of things like boycott movements. It strengthens everyone who is attempting to, at the very least, get Israel to stop bombing people and stop shooting people and assassinating them and murdering them and starving them to death. Here is Palestinian human rights attorney Diana Boutou. She is on Democracy Now! I don't know if we'll play the whole thing, but here is her take on this.
This is an amazing ruling because it highlights everything that the South African team and, of course, Palestinians have been saying the entire time, which is that Israel is plausibly carrying out genocide. And so the fact that the court has indicated to Israel that they have to take measures to prevent genocide, to make sure that soldiers are doing the same, to prosecute those individuals who are inciting, including high government officials, and ensure that there is effective humanitarian aid is precisely what was sought by Palestinians. It's now up to the world to make sure that this court ruling is actually enacted.
But they did not call for an immediate ceasefire, as South Africa asked. The significance of this?
I think it's very difficult at this stage for the court to be pushing for a ceasefire. But in the fact that they said, first and foremost, that Israel has to take all measures to prevent acts of genocide is enough for the world to then be pushing for a ceasefire. It's really up to the international system as we know it to make sure that genocide is not carried out. And so it's imperative that this be followed up by countries around the world, making sure that Israel doesn't get to do whatever it wants to do with Palestinians in Gaza and continue this genocide.
And can you talk about the woman who we heard delivering the pronouncement of the court, Joan Donahue, former State Department official, though she's not representing the United States in this, she represents the court. She was in the State Department under President Obama.
Pause it for 1 second. We're going to play that clip. I don't know. It's about 4.5 minutes long, but she was the one who sort of made the announcement and ticked off what was required of Israel and what was not. Let's just hear her response to this, and then.
Well, yes, and she was one of the judges, one of 17 judges on the bench. 2 of them are ad hoc. One of the 15 permanent judges who ruled in favor of all of the measures that had been sought. Her term actually expires on February the 6th, and so she won't be with the court after that. But it was very important that this decision not just be a split court, but you can tell by the breadth of it that of the 17 judges, 2 being ad hoc, that on most of the issues, it was 15 versus 2, one being the Ugandan judge, and the second, of course, being the Israeli judge. And in some cases, it being 16-1, with the one, ironically, being the Ugandan judge.
Why the Ugandan judge?
It's not clear. It's not entirely clear why. It's clear why the Israeli judge, obviously. But what's more important is the fact that we see that that this court has overwhelmingly decided in favor of South Africa, has overwhelmingly determined that there's plausible risk of genocide, and it becomes imperative upon the world community to now act. The fact that it's taken 112 days for the world to finally recognize that this is genocide and that it had to go to court says something about the international legal system as we know it, which is that it's broken. But I'm hoping that based on this, the world will now begin to act, and rather than hiding behind all of these false claims that Israel has repeated for the past 112 days.
Okay. And, the thing about international law, I don't know, famously in this country, and I can't remember the context, someone was like, I'll get a court ruling. Yeah. And you and what army are going to uphold it? And in fact,
Andrew Jackson.
I give it Andrew Jackson. And I guess we're seeing that maybe play out in Texas over the next 24 hours. Supreme Court basically said, you don't control the border because of the Constitution. Sorry. And Texas says, we're not going to pay attention to that. And we'll see. Internationally speaking, there is no monopoly of force, as it were. And much of international law is norms and consensus and following that. And the idea that, you're looking at 15-1, 16-1, even with the Israeli judge at times, supporting both the assessments that are implicit in the requirements put on Israel, right? I mean, because these requirements exist theoretically under the rules of war upon all parties. The idea that the court has to reiterate certain things about genocide indicate an implicit assessment that genocide is in process. And that Israel is bound, it's basically reiterating, like, you're not supposed to be doing this.
Yep.
And come back to us and decide. Because the actual case about the underlying issues here are not going to be resolved for years. That's what it takes. But as they went about as far as you could go without calling for a ceasefire. And in some respects, a ceasefire is more easily ignored by Israel than these narrow measures, which in their totality lead to almost a ceasefire.
And I've also heard some thoughtful takes that the ceasefire term within this context would be undercutting the claims of genocide, because a ceasefire is a wartime kind of construction as opposed to the deliberate killing of an entrapped population. I'm not coming out on any side of that argument, but that's one that's been credibly made. And I also just think it's notable that they basically dismissed every one of Israel's defense mechanisms, like the fact that South Africa did not have the requisite jurisdiction to bring this case. I mean, that's not how the ICJ works, or standing, or like the fact that, it was justifiable because of October 7th. They didn't even really acknowledge the Israel has a right to defend itself argument, because it's not relevant what the justification for an alleged genocide would be, even if it is self-defense.
There is no justification for a genocide, so it doesn't matter what justification is offered. There is no justification for a genocide. There are no circumstances where you're allowed to commit the war crimes that certainly the court implied have been happening and must stop. So there it is. It's a good day for that. We're going to try and have maybe an international law expert on next week to sort of break it down for us when people have had an opportunity to digest and get a sense of where this is going. But there was a piece in, was it Politico today, or Axios, reporting that Biden told Bibi that he's not in it for the rest of the year because they're aware in the White House that this is starting to threaten, Biden's reelection, and that is definitely helpful. God bless you. As a motivating factor, and certainly this is going to increase the intensity.
Yep. That's the value of it.
I mean, prior to this, it was if it was genocide, then someone would be doing it about it, and it's not. And because no one isn't, we can say it's not. And now that you can point to international law,
it's a seminal moment, not just for people who have been in favor of Palestinian rights and advocating it for decades. It's a seminal moment for international law as a mechanism for pressure to stop the crimes like the ones that Israel is committing. And it's a test to see how the rest of the international community responds.
Yep. Really hard to promote a rules-based international order. After just simply allowing Israel to do what it's doing, but then B, when the really primary functioning body of the international order in terms of like a rules-based international order, when it comes to war at the very least, issues something like this and you don't pay attention to it, you might as well just say we're off to the races and none of it matters. We're going to talk to Digby about this, but also what's going on in domestic politics, because it's a crap show. And we haven't paid much attention to it. Although I want to also make a point, and we'll talk about this more, but we had Bill McKibben on a week ago Wednesday, I think it was. And he was talking about a major protest they were going to have in the second week of February. I think it was the 8th to the 10th off the top of my head, where there was going to be a lot of people arrested. And McKibben said, this is as big as Keystone XL. And that is the licensing that was up for being approved by the Biden administration for liquid natural gas, an export facility. And it would have basically provided 50 years worth of investment in pulling more liquid natural gas out of the ground. And the Biden administration, as of yesterday, has put a freeze on it that, from McKibben's perspective, and I'll read this later, but he said is the most damaging thing a president has done to the fossil fuel industry in McKibben's, well, probably in ever. And because this really basically shuts the door on a big investment that, when they make that big investment, people are invested in it, and those forces, want to get their money out. So that's a big deal. We'll talk more about that later, but it's completely been overshadowed. But first, a couple of words from our sponsors. I know you care about politics, is why you listen to this show. I also know that you really understand that the future of America is in your hands. And if you don't believe me, you should listen to Future Hindsight. Many times we can feel hopeless and powerless, like we can't do anything to change the status quo. But what if you could actually be a strategic player in politics? Future Hindsight offers you an independent, unaffiliated perspective into what is at stake at this year's elections and what you can do about it at the local, state, and national level. On the podcast, Mila Atmos shows you just how much power you have and how to use it. Think about it this way. If each of us could just do 2% more than we're doing now, it would transform our democracy. So tune in every Thursday to get engaged and stay engaged. This week, Mila takes a deep dive into how the digital revolution can still fulfill its promise of a democratic revolution. In other words, make AI work for democracy. Find them at futurehindsight.com or wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, sponsoring today's program, and this is particularly apropos, and actually I'm glad we have this ad so I can remember. I'm going to my 40th high school reunion this weekend.
Woo.
Don't do the addition, folks.
Okay.
Or the subtraction. But the fact is, I do not bounce back like I did back in the day after a night of drinks. So you have to make a choice and you have to spend all night like, I should nurse this, glass of wine or beer or bourbon. That was until I found Z-Biotics. And I will be taking a thing of Z-Biotics on my way to my high school reunion. Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. Plus, they also got, ride share up in Worcester now. So.
Oh, nice. You don't have to worry. Wow.
Yep. Ew, yeah.
No designated driver for
That's
you.
right. Z-Biotics was invented by PhD. I can actually walk from my high school back home, but I don't know if I want to do that.
Maybe if you're feeling a little
days.
nostalgic, yeah. Looking up at the stars, Sam, this
That's
weekend.
not how it happened when I was a kid.
Remember the bullies on that corner?
Exactly. There's all the toughies that were up there. Z-Biotics was invented by PhD scientists to help you feel better the morning after drinking. And it turns out, why do you feel bad in the morning? Dehydration's part of it, but that's not what it is. It turns out that when you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in your gut. And it's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Z-Biotics produces an enzyme which breaks this byproduct down. All you got to do is make Z-Biotics your first drink of the night. So around whatever, I don't know. I'm going to drink it. Well, we're old, so the reunion starts at like 6. But Z-Biotics, you drink it. I'll be drinking it at like 5:30. Drink responsibly to feel your best tomorrow. So I'll be able to make it home, hopefully, on Sunday. Every time I have Z-Biotics before drinking, it makes a huge difference for me. Honestly, doesn't matter what I'm doing. Exercise, hosting a show, trying to clean up my apartment, whatever it is, doesn't matter. Z-Biotics works. And this is not an all or nothing approach. Z-Biotics allows me to enjoy nights out in moderation while working towards whatever it is I want to do the next day. So,
It really is great.
Yep. Go to zbiotics.com/majority. Get 15% off your first order when you use the code majority at checkout. You can also sign up for a subscription using my code so you can stay prepared no matter the time or occasion. Z-Biotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. That's Z-Biotics, BIOTICS, zbiotics.com/majority. I will put the link in the podcast and YouTube description. All right, quick break, and we'll be right back with Heather Parton. that. This sounds like what they're going to be playing at my high school reunion, actually.
Oh, you can boogie to this, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
You do a
I
little
hope-
Trump, you know.
I hope people don't dance. That is what I'm terrified about.
Oh, they do. They do.
I'm
They do. It's not.
very
It's
nervous
so
about
bad.
that.
Yeah.
Are they going to
so
play
bad.
We
music
are
from your
back.
time?
Yeah. I don't know.
What,
They
so
can
like The
find-
Tour-
Twist by Chubby Checker?
More like Thriller, and Michael Jackson. Right?
It might have been actually a little bit, yeah. It was
A little more Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
I mean, what are we
Sam was
talking?
in college.
It was
but-
Led Zeppelin, but it was. We were listening to a lot of like Led Zeppelin. All right, we are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigland on the Majority Report. I want to welcome back to the program Heather Parton, writer at salon.com, or you may know her as Digby, the proprietor of the super Uber blog Hullabaloo. Couldn't help but obviously talk about my high school reunion happening. I'll talk more about that later. But Digby, let's just start at the beginning of the week, because I had almost completely forgotten that we had a Republican and not Democratic primary, but like I guess popularity contest, in which I should say in the Democratic side, 1,500 votes for ceasefire now were written in.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
That's
they
so
just came out
interesting.
with the numbers, which puts it at like 1%. Is that what it is? In New Hampshire?
It was kind of a last minute campaign, right? With some signs going up, but I think it was a way for people, because no one's excited about those, about Dean Phillips and Marianne Williamson or whatever, but of course. So, but like this is a way to try to, show Biden's where a lot of voters are at right now without having to vote for one of those candidates.
Yeah,
So, good idea.
I mean, that was 1,500 votes is about a little more than 1% of the vote.
That's meaningful. That's
which
very
is-
meaningful.
Yes, particularly all write-ins and whatnot. But let's start with the Republican side. Donald Trump won handily.
Really?
and what did you make of him? Like, there was a sort of a rush of people saying this is worst case scenario for Donald Trump is that the American public get reminded about him. At one point, and this time around, it just doesn't seem quite as amusing as it did last time.
Well, I totally agree. And I've been on that train for a while because, there's been this sort of, I don't know, a little bit of self-righteousness coming from some of the cable news hosts saying there's a cost to us in showing Donald Trump, and it's very bad for us to be showing his lies, et cetera, et cetera. And I've always thought that was a mistake because I think, for one thing, people forget things very, very quickly. In American politics, they can put things behind them, super fast. And I think that for a lot of people, they consciously tried to put Donald Trump out of their minds, and for good reason. I mean, we'd all like to, right? But they lost a sense of who this guy was. I think an awful lot of people have, and sort of thought, well, it wasn't that bad when he was in, and now, Biden is doing this, that, or the other, and so maybe I'll give him another chance. It's important to show him, and not just be as a reminder, but as to expose him to the public for what he is today, which is much worse. It's exactly as you say. It's not funny. It's not amusing. It's not entertaining. It's dangerous. And it's kind of terrifying to hear if you actually listen to him talk for two reasons. One, he's gotten far more extreme. He's spent the last 3 years diving deeply into the right-wing fringe and the bubble there. And this has, actually overtaken any sense he might have had as president of what the job was really about. Two, he's under tremendous pressure because of all these legal cases. And three, he's losing it. He just is. There's something going on with the guy that is not normal, and it shows. And so people need to see that. I think it's really important that they do.
Do you think he's losing it any more than he had lost it before? Because I remember being I've said this before, but I remember being as convinced as a non-doctor can be that the guy had untreated syphilis. back in 2016. I mean, like that part of him being, I think he's just like, doesn't feel like he's obligated anymore to correct himself, that it's all part of like the act. I mean, it sort of feels like, he's just trying to be gaffe. He doesn't worry about being gaffe prone anymore. I mean, everything else I agree with. Just the idea though that like he's, I don't know, lost it any more than he had lost it before just seems to be, I don't know. I think he's always been half nuts.
Well, I agree with you, and I've been chronicling this stuff daily for years. The gaffes and the crazy kind of rhetoric coming out of his mouth that doesn't, half the time he doesn't make any sense. But I do get the sense there's something more going on with him. Now that may just be the pressure that he's under, which I think he's showing. I think there's no doubt that the pressure from the legal, the legal pressure is really getting to him. I think it's pretty clear that that's having an effect. He's in danger of losing a big chunk of his fortune. And I think that's a big problem between the two cases that are unfolding in New York as we speak. He's in danger of losing an awful lot of money over time as soon as they go through the appeals process. And that has nothing to do with him becoming president, right? These things are going to continue either way. Whether he's president or not, he doesn't have any control over that regardless. So I think that pressure is getting to him, and it is making him, if nothing, maybe I shouldn't put it that he's losing it, he's distracted. And so when he's speaking on the stump, what I'm noticing, and I've watched way, way, way too many Trump rallies. This is time I can never get back. It's totally awful. And I'm still watching them because I'm curious about this. And he is not the same on the stump as he was. There's a lack of focus even on the crowd. He's not reading the crowd as cleanly as he used to. He's generally been pretty good at that. It's one of his rare gifts, is being able to read the crowd, and he's not reading them very well. So I think, I think that there is something going on with him. And I think, it's one of the main reasons why he's so angry at Nikki Haley. She's a woman who's defying him. Obviously, that is not acceptable. I mean,
Right.
Come on. But it's also the fact that what she's criticizing him for is being a loser and losing it. And those are two things that that just make him see red. And it is freaking him out that she's saying these things to a Republican audience. I mean, he's been pretty well insulated from from the kind of criticism that you see on MSNBC or on this show or wherever. And most of his voters.
Is the thing I think people don't fully grasp is this point you're making right now, is like in our bubble, which encompasses, the majority of people in the country, nevertheless. But the fact is that for a Trump supporter, these people believe bat crap crazy things. And it's because they're in these sort of like this bubble, for lack of a better term, where nothing permeates it. This is like Fox couldn't even get terribly critical of him. I just think about Ted Cruz going like, "You don't come and talk about my wife that way, mister." And like within 3 days, he was like, "Hi, I'm calling on behalf of Donald Trump. I just want you to make sure to vote." And, literally that's what happened. Yeah. And so to have someone out there sort of full on Trump critical within the sort of same reporting circles is the point you're making. And I think that's true.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's driving him crazy, and he wants her out. I mean, this could have been, this is why, Republicans are they're so ridiculous. They could have been doing this the whole time, right? I mean, they had a big primary. They had all kinds of people on the tickets, running. They could have easily done this and criticized him and degraded his reputation within the Republican coalition, but they just couldn't do it. They were afraid of alienating his voters, and so they didn't do it. But in the last few weeks, even DeSantis, before he dropped out, thank God, I can't stand looking at him again. I just hope I never have to see him again. But they were both becoming a little bit more critical. And now Nikki Haley is totally, she's going for it. Now, she's not really criticizing him on the things he should be criticized for,
because she's a
specifically,
Republican.
Yeah, of course. And she's, I really liked his policies, I agree with him, I'm going, what policies, being a jackass, that's his policy. I don't know what you're talking about.
Cutting
taxes. Yeah. Maybe she wants to do
scrapping the
tariffs,
Iran deal. She likes
that. For sure.
She's a hawk.
Likes all of it. All of it. Yeah. I mean, she's totally there. But she is criticizing him in the way that is driving him crazy, and in the way that kind of it does, sort of penetrate his reputation among Republicans as being this, super strong, juggernaut who can't be criticized because he's so perfect. They've come to believe this, and her doing this is actually having an effect on him. Whether it's having an effect on Trump voters, I don't know. But if you look at the results from Iowa and New Hampshire, there are a fair number, it's a fairly significant faction of Republican-leaning independents and some educated Republicans who really seem to be put off by him. How that translates in the general election, I think people are making a lot of assumptions. We don't know. An awful lot of those people are just going to go, well, I guess it's Trump, and they'll just do that. But there may be a few who don't, and she's sort of representing that, and he cannot stand it. He just can't stand it. So the way that he's behaving, this, so-called victory speech that he gave the other night, was really this demonstration of schoolyard bullying dominance that was even shocking, even for him. What he did to Tim Scott and what Tim Scott allowed him to do to him.
That was amazing. Did you know this?
What?
Did you see that? Well, he said, Nikki Haley appointed Tim Scott senator.
Oh, yes.
And he turned around like, you must really hate her.
Oh,
to be
that's what he was referring to. The fact that, because Tim Scott was, who resigned at that time, or what the vacancy was. He wasn't first elected, right? He was appointed.
No. Yeah. No, it wasn't Sanford.
Oh,
it
doesn't matter.
I can't remember if somebody was brought into the administration or something like that.
It's not relevant, but...
but the point is, like, he said, you must really hate her to be here.
Yeah.
Now, Tim Scott said, well, I it's not that I hate her. I really like you. But
I love you. He came up and go, I just love you. It was the most... they're all auditioning. Jim DeMint. Oh, Jim DeMint. God, that guy. He's with the Heritage Foundation now, I think. Tim Scott it was this self-abasement, auditioning for the VP role, which is obviously what he's doing, and doing as much of a Mike Pence impression as he could do. And it was just this total show of dominance by Donald Trump. Come on now, I need you to grovel here. I need you, I'm going to bring this up, this embarrassing thing for Tim Scott, which is that he betrayed the person who appointed him to the Senate and was his great political benefactor for Donald Trump. Trump had to make that clear in that audience who that guy was, and there was Tim Scott grinning and kind of groveling and doing the Mike Pence thing. It's sick. It's really sick what he's doing, and they followed it up by having David Bossie. I'm sure you guys all know who that is, one of Trump's henchmen, going all the way back to Whitewater days in the 90s. He apparently he's one of the, I don't know, they call him delegates or, chairman or something of the RNC, put out a memo yesterday saying that they want to just declare, the RNC should just declare Donald Trump the presumptive nominee.
Yep.
All these primaries, forget it and whatever. And their blowback was so extreme that even Trump had to put out a little Truth Social saying, no, I want that's very nice. I appreciate the respect you showed me, but really we should just go ahead and go through with the primaries. But this is the level. Of course, this was his idea. Needless to say, Donald Trump was behind it. So this is what we're dealing with here in the Republican side. And it's something.
I am less convinced that, well, the reason why Haley can do this is because she does not think that she has a future in a Trump administration or a Trump-led Republican Party.
I wasn't sure about that until now, but I think you're right.
And I think it's because, I think she didn't think that she had that opportunity. And I think she's also her super PAC raised $50 million, according to the Times in the past. I guess it was about yesterday. They announced it. The Koch, like whatever they call it, the Koch network is pouring money in, and I think this is all a 2028 bet. And it's not even necessarily for her. They want Trump to lose. It seems to me.
They do. They're saying it explicitly. I mean, they're out there saying it.
And I mean, they want him to lose in the general. And
yeah, I think that's clear.
And I think that is that is what makes it different this time around. Now, of course, Joe Biden is also significantly weaker than he was 4 years ago. So they're going to need that help. But it really is coming down to the Biden administration running this sort of like lesser of two evils campaign. And I think Nikki Haley, we will see. But I wouldn't be shocked if she stays in until Super Tuesday just to make Trump get out there and be what he was. Like that, to me, they must have been sitting around in Nikki Haley headquarters or whatever, the donors going like, we won the primary. Like when he came out and did that, we won the primary, because that's alienating 1% of the suburban, white women. And that's all we needed. We just need to remind everybody about the tweets and the thing that they always complained about at the end of every one of those focus groups. Love his policies, don't like the tweets.
Right.
And that's what the strategy is. I mean,
and abortion.
Because I also think that the sooner, abortion is definitely out there, the general election, but that's out there without a doubt.
Yeah.
I'm talking like at the very margins here.
Right.
But this is going to come down to the margins in this election, particularly with, I think, like Biden's weakness as a candidate relative to where he was 4 years ago. And I think the longer the primary plays out, the better for people who want Donald Trump to lose in the general, because the media is going to get tired of Donald Trump if they've got to cover him for the next 9 months, and people are going to forget about it. But if he can't sew this up until April, then all of a sudden you're talking about basically a regular general campaign, and he's going to get a lot more attention.
Oh, I think, that is such a good insight. I think that's totally true. I mean, you're saying that, it occurs to me that the Koch network, and there are a number of other, big donors and also small donors. She's collecting vast sums of small donor money just in the last few days, ever since he came out and said, I don't want it, he said, I don't want any money from anybody who's any Nikki Haley donors. I mean, that's a lie, of course. He'll take what guys never left a penny on the sidewalk. I mean, let's be serious. But he said that, and what she did, an obvious move, went, okay, everybody, here's where you send your money. And apparently she's collected a couple $1 million from that. So there are small donors, even Democrats, people like that, who want to see this thing go on, that are also going to help her keep going. And there's no reason for her to quit. If, she's, at this point, you're right. She can no longer lay any claim to the MAGA movement in any way. She's the other Republican Party, whatever, the George Bush Republican Party, I guess. And so she has to, realize that that's over for her. Any association with Trump that she had is gone. So they're playing for 28 and keeping them in long enough. I really believe that the Koch network does want Trump to lose in the general. I think for them, you have to remember something about the Kochs, and I assume the people they had hired around them. They're not mega people. They're
the
horrible.
Mercers, right? Like they're
no, they're not the Mercers.
Right. They're more.
They're libertarians. They're libertarians, and they've always, they're big money libertarians, corporate. They're awful, but it's a different kind of awful.
Well, I think, to be honest with you, I think a big part of it is, and we're seeing it. You wrote about how Trump scuttled this immigration deal. I think I'm also, I don't know if you read David Dayen's piece on this, and I'm sort of like in his camp that this was never going to happen anyways because the House wasn't going to allow it. But what people forget is like the Koch brothers, you know, you can draw a direct line between like, we shouldn't have COVID lockdowns because it's going to hurt business. It puts too much power in the hands of workers to provide funds for them to not have to go into work to expose themselves. But they're also concerned about the loss of immigrant labor because this is where they get to exploit. These are people who like, it's one thing to exploit the American worker, but there's some theoretical brakes on that. There's no brakes on exploiting migrant workers. And as those migrant workers come in and they have no worker protections, it creates downward pressure on just worker protections for everybody.
Absolutely.
It creates downward pressure on unionization, emboldenment, and worker actions. Like Trump is dangerous to them in terms of their bottom line, it seems to me. And I think that is,
absolutely,
in a way that is sort of like unique. And I don't mean, short term. I don't know if I think they just like, they're afraid of like this sort of like virulent right-wing populism because they're afraid of populism, broadly speaking. And it has more of a their libertarian idea, really their industry ideals are more threatened when a Republican, I think, this is for the Koch brothers in particular, not the other billionaires, but with the nature of their stuff, I think they are nervous about that. They want to go back to more of the libertarian style stuff.
Absolutely. For them, I mean, they've owned the Republican, party for decades, basically, and they still do. I mean, let's just make one thing clear. You're watching Wall Street now. They're all still, you hear Jamie Dimon at Davos, well, maybe Trump wasn't so bad. And, he had a lot of good ideas and we need to be gentle and kind and generous to his supporters. We shouldn't say mean things about them. I mean, it's pretty clear that you're seeing them, laying a lot of bets, let's say, putting it in a number of different directions. They just want to be sure that they're on the inside no matter what happens. And they are. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. Whatever happens, if Donald Trump wins, corporate America and Wall Street wins, because
without a doubt, particularly finance
is not
particularly finance and real estate, I think are big winners. But the coalition that's going to elect Donald Trump is virulently anti-immigrant.
That's right.
And that, I think, is what scares the Koch brothers.
Social Security and Medicare. They're, part of Trump's populism, for better or worse, and it's the only good thing he ever did as far as I'm concerned, is that he does take Social Security and Medicare more or less off the table. I mean, he produced budgets that did have cuts to Social Security and Medicare, but it wasn't like Nikki Haley saying,
exactly.
you're the only, you can't be a serious person if you're not going to cut entitlements. I mean, he doesn't say that. And they don't like that. They don't like that about Trump either, because they want to keep that drumbeat going forever, is because as libertarians, they are totally against any kind of welfare state benefits for anybody. I mean, that just goes against their entire ethos. So, it's an interesting split in the Republican Party that, and it's always been there. But what we're seeing now is there are some fissures that can be exploited, let's just put it that way, by Democrats and by others who want to see some cracks start to really develop in that coalition, because, the Republicans are going to be around after Trump. I mean, it's not just now. I mean, there's, we've got a future, hopefully, if things go right. And, you want to make sure that you don't forget who these Republicans really are. And this is one of the reasons why I find it, I'm not going to sit out here and extol Nikki Haley as being, the great, she'll be the first woman president or something. I don't want to do that, because, she is also a very dangerous
person.
She's
horrible.
Just
I mean, her politics are horrible.
Way. They're awful. And she's worse than ever. I mean, she's worse than she used to be. Yeah. I mean, you can see the effect of MAGA on the Republican Party. Of course. I mean, that's who the party is.
Yeah, and I am curious, though, if you have any takeaways from the results and like the really jarring difference in between independents and Republicans in who voted in the New Hampshire primary. I mean, it's obvious on its face, right? Like Trump got the 75% of Republicans that voted for Trump, 25% voted for Nikki Haley. She also got some self-identified Democrats that voted. And I just found the dynamic, because there was no real Democratic primary, to be so in Haley's favor. Because if you're an unaffiliated voter and you're going to the polls, you're not going to pick up a ballot for a primary that doesn't count for anything, for the most part, unless you really are a Democrat. But if you're going to the polls and you want to make a difference, you know what ballot you're going to pick up.
Well, you have to register beforehand. Let's be clear too.
I don't in New Hampshire.
You have to declare before then. You could have switched your affiliation, but I don't think you can do it on the day. You looked that up, Bradley?
I was just listening to this New Hampshire reporter talk about it on Democracy Now. That was the only that's my like if you're a registered Democrat, you can't vote.
Right.
But if you're unaffiliated, and there are a lot of unaffiliate, you can pick up whatever ballot you want on the day. So my point is just like that dynamic, I think, favored her so significantly. Plus the demographics of New Hampshire being more college educated, not very religious, and having a lot of those independent voters. Like this, you could take some takeaways from this about how she might be a strong general election candidate for the Republicans. And so I guess I'm curious what your take was on those results, basically.
Absolutely. I agree with you completely. And I've always thought that Nikki Haley would be tougher to beat in the general election than Donald Trump. Because I mean, yes, there's all the, there's sexism and various other things, but that's in a universe where Donald Trump doesn't exist. If Donald Trump existing means that he would take his cult and go home and would either run as a third party or a write-in, or he would make her life a living hell. I mean, I've just never felt there was any choice but Donald Trump for the Republicans. That was going to happen one way or the other. And if they didn't vote for him, he'd make sure that they would lose. So I think everybody knows that. But you're absolutely right, too. And here's an even more interesting kind of deep dive into what happened in New Hampshire. In the college towns all over New Hampshire, she and Biden wiped the floor. I mean, nobody voted for Donald Trump in those places.
Right.
So, now granted, there's a lot of red, rural voters out there, and they dominate the Republican Party, and they did in Iowa and New Hampshire too. They voted for Trump. And they will in the general election. I mean, there's no getting away from that. But the Republicans can't win without winning the suburbs, and without winning some college-educated voters. And it really looks like they are bleeding a lot of those people. And anecdotally, there were reporters, crawling all over those two states for the last couple of months. It's been endless man-on-the-street interviews. So I've seen a few, and at the risk of repeating what I heard in a diner and in somewhere in Iowa, a lot of those independents are, it's just purely I don't want Trump. They've made that decision, and they said they voted for Trump before, and they're not going to do it again. Whether they'll vote for Joe Biden, I don't know. And there's this whole third party thing hanging out there, no labels and the rest of it, that could throw a monkey wrench into it. But it does seem to me that there is a group of independents, as you say, Emma, that have been alienated from Donald Trump and have decided that they're not going to vote for him in this election. So, we'll see how it shakes out. But, one of the things you have to say, and I don't mean to sound like somebody, with rose-colored glasses here, the Republicans keep losing elections. And we watch the polls and we see the polls, it's very, very close, but they keep losing. They've been losing. I mean, Nikki Haley pointed this out the other night. We lost in 2018, we lost in 2020, we lost in 2022. They're losing in 2023. They just lost a state house seat down in Florida.
Yeah,
the Republicans did. So, we should take some heart in that maybe the country, this is all I can think about it. Maybe the country hasn't completely lost its mind. The majority haven't lost their mind. That's all I can say.
Not to not to take a poop in the punch bowl there, but
please, Sam, here you
well,
go.
I mean, I think that is true largely in terms of Republicans and Democrats, but I think like Joe Biden is in like uniquely like radioactive territory.
Yep.
Like
I agree.
there is I saw a statistic that like this is one that really struck me. For whatever reason, I mean, he has incredibly low approval ratings. I think probably the lowest on approval ratings, maybe in the history of presidents at this juncture. But the one that really struck me was like something like it was like 20% thought that he would have an unsuccessful presidency in January of 2021 when we're, coming out of COVID and this and that. Like there was every reason to be sort of like, to think that his presidency would be rough. And now that number is more than doubled. It's like 50, almost 60%, I think, off the top of my head. And that is like, people don't like to vote for that. Now, I definitely think there's a lot of people who understand this is the way I vote against Donald Trump. But there's going to be other options for people to vote against Donald Trump, which really in the end will help Donald Trump. But I don't know that most voters are sophisticated enough to sort of like be able to accept that equation. There's one of two people who are going to be president, assuming they're both alive, on November 8th of whatever it is of this year. And one of them is either going to be Joe Biden and one of them is, and if not Joe Biden, then it's going to be Donald Trump. But people can vote against Donald Trump in their minds and still the guy wins. And, and you could still lose. Joe Biden could still get 7 million more votes than Donald Trump and then still lose the Electoral College. And I can't help but think that like Biden this week did the LNG thing, which is huge from an environmental activist standpoint. They're promoting their student loan stuff, which doesn't have the direct impact on younger people than I think, they get credit for because of the nature of this student loan forgiveness. The overriding sort of like drag on him right now is he is basically ceded every foreign policy question to Bibi Netanyahu, it feels like at this point. And I don't know how this is sustainable, particularly in light of this, the international, the ICJ ruling today. I don't know how it's sustainable, how they can do this in the administration without firing a bunch of people. And even then, I don't know if there's anything they can do to mitigate it, but they can stop the bleeding, it seems like. I mean, aside from like all the moral questions associated, just the sheer political, as a political matter, how they can allow this to continue, because Biden's whole sort of like respect in the world and keep a lid on things, that seems to be falling apart here.
Well, I mean, what do you think? I mean, do you think they will? Do you think that they are moving in that direction, that there's any movement in a positive way on this?
So far, no. I don't think there's been any movement in a positive direction whatsoever. And I think it's because it's Biden.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I think like if it was, various players in the administration, the political people would have some ability to have already changed Biden's policies.
But why is he? I mean, he's never been an ally of Netanyahu.
No, that's not actually the case. You can go back and
there's a Mother Jones
Beinart,
piece from
Beinart wrote in.
So he really likes Bibi Netanyahu and supports him and thinks he's a great leader.
He undercut Clinton on behalf of Netanyahu. He undercut
Hillary Clinton as
Hillary
Secretary
Clinton
of State.
is Secretary of State. He's got a long history, for whatever reason, of like, Beinart wrote a piece in Jewish Affairs in 2020, like this
Jewish Currents.
Sorry,
Yeah.
that Biden is not good on Israel, and I think like you look at even like the Iran nuke deal. And everybody, I've had a couple of people on the show who are like, we can't figure out why he couldn't get this done. It was incompetence, but maybe it wasn't incompetence. Maybe it was, I'm not doing this because Netanyahu doesn't want me to.
Because that's so surprising. I'm sorry that I'm ignorant on that relationship. I didn't realize that there was a longstanding alliance between Biden and Netanyahu specifically. I did know.
Netanyahu and like the most sort of like, I think, Zionist and colonialist. There's been that Mother Jones piece. I think we read some quotes in there where like people in the administration say like he doesn't even seem to think the Palestinians are human. And that
just seems so weird to me. It seems so bizarre that he would think that.
Well, Beinart said this to us, and I've repeated it now like 20 times because it was so well said, that people who are more willing to challenge the myth of America as a nation, a promised land founded on a hostile frontier, are also more willing to challenge the myth of Israel as a nation that was created a promised land on a hostile frontier. And
interesting.
And Biden is not somebody who challenges American exceptionalism at all. He's somebody who buys into it quite aggressively and romanticizes it. So I think that he sees Israel and his support for Israel as reparations for the Holocaust, and that's kind of how things end. And also, Biden has a history of a little bit of racism towards Arab people, and I think that that's kind of something he's not willing to challenge at this point in his life. It's unfortunate, but at least this ICJ ruling, I think, will put pressure on the administration at the very least. That's all that matters right now.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting because I'll have to go and read that Beinart piece and the one in Mother Jones as well, because I certainly understood, and I've always seen this maybe as sort of, it's simplistic. Biden is old, and people of his age grew up with the idea that Israel was, that as exactly as you put it, reparations for the Holocaust, that was, a very, very special and specific country that must be defended because of everything that had happened. And as an American, he grew up feeling that this was his special duty to defend Israel. And I didn't realize that as a politician that he had such a specific alliance with the Israeli right. That was not something that I'd seen. Now, I can't say it surprises me because everybody had a specific relationship with the Israeli right during those periods when he was coming up in politics. That was just how it was. I mean, in fact, people didn't differentiate when I was growing up. There was no right or left in Israel. There was just Israel. But whatever they did was good and whatever anybody else did was bad. And that's how it was sort of viewed in American culture. So that's here we are seeing a perfect example of why Biden's age, in my view, has been, as I'm looking at this particular issue, a problem. Because, most of the time I don't think that. So, I think in many ways his experience and his, abilities in some ways being older has actually helped him. I mean, I think in the other aspects of his administrations that have been successful, I think he's been, shown that his experience has actually been beneficial to the policy. This is one where it absolutely is not true because he has just not evolved in any way from the time he was a young man on this issue. And that is very, very dangerous and bad in the current situation. And if they don't have any influence on him, if he's being, stubborn about it and saying, no, this is what it is, and there's nobody around him, none of his his, more evolved advisors are not helpful, it's truly a huge problem, because this problem is not going away. It is not something that's just kind of dissipating, which is what I thought, I think most people kind of thought if it would happen, that would be helpful, but it's not. So, here we are. It's just getting worse every day.
Let's just, before we let you go, you wrote this piece on the immigration deal that's fallen apart, and it also looks like supplemental funding for Ukraine is also in deep jeopardy. Hard to believe that the Pentagon doesn't have money tucked away in various areas for occasions like this, frankly. I wouldn't be surprised. But what happens now in Congress? Because now I'm also reading that there was a meeting with a congressional leadership in the White House, and everybody's sitting around a table. Mike Johnson was there, and you had at least one Democrat in leadership. I can't remember what Mike was, it Hines or somebody. I can't remember who it was. Some congressional leader of I don't know what committee said, maybe we protect Johnson from his right flank in the House. Now, it's so hard to know how to interpret these things, because that's the last thing that you want to get out there in public if you're going to do that, because that is like the kiss of death. But what is going on there? Like the Republicans, it's bizarre. How frozen they are, and how Trump is dictating everything, but also the rump in the Republican Party is also dictating things. They're not capable. And we saw this during the, when Obama wanted to cut Social Security cost of living, the Tea Party basically killed it. But they're doing, they're now incapable of voting for anything. It seems
exactly. Well, they've been
even
frozen,
impeachment,
really.
Even impeachment, they can't.
Or the Hunter Biden thing, they can't get that done. It's nothing. It's since January of 2023, when they came in, the new majority, nothing has happened. Other than just drama. Drama and chaos. This is what they do. They have a serious problem. Part of it is they've got a tiny majority. I think they've got 2 seats right now. And it's very tiny, and it's also very unstable. And they're going into an election year. So, why anybody would think they could get anything done this year, I don't know. But that was one reason why Kevin McCarthy, and even Johnson to some degree, wanted to get these funding bills done before the end of the year. But that ship sailed, and it is astonishing how bad they really are. Now, the Democrats, when you said that, I thought when I heard it that the Democrats had offered to bail Johnson out if they could just get a bill to the floor, and save him from Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's threatening every single day to take him down with another motion to vacate. I thought they were kind of stabbing him in the back. Basically saying, by making it public, they were basically saying, hey, we're working with Mike over here. Don't say anything.
That's the thing I can't figure out. Are they trying to help him, or are they trying to hurt him?
I don't know, but it didn't help him, and it doesn't help him, and they know it. So whatever reasoning they had, either they're stupid or they're more canny than we give them credit for. But this immigration thing, this is very, very serious what's happening. I just want to briefly sort of talk a little bit about it, because we're dealing with something that is kind of, it's not unprecedented, but goes back a long way since we've dealt with anything like this. What's happening in Washington is just this chaos, this Sturm und Drang that they just can't seem to get past. And it's kind of infecting the Senate too. Now you've got people like J.D. Vance and, of course, Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley and that group who are exerting their influence. And Donald Trump is flying in from above, issuing edicts that I don't want to deal, and saying specifically, because he's a moron, I don't want to give Joe Biden a win here. So we have a crisis on the border and I don't want you to solve it. That's a very bad political message. And I think the Democrats are starting to sound a little bit competent in actually getting that out there. And we'll see, because they usually don't do this very well. The problem isn't in Washington. Well, there is a problem in Washington, but it's insoluble. So we'll just set that aside for a minute. What's happening in the states is what's really interesting on immigration, because we just had a Supreme Court ruling that said that state of Texas, and with a conservative majority. I mean, they had Barrett and Roberts, both with the majority, saying that the state of Texas had to allow the Border Patrol to come in and get rid of that razor wire that's on the border, because it's a federal, this is a federal responsibility, and that the state has no standing to do what they're doing, which is try and block the border with these grotesque, inhumane, fences with knives on them. People are dying, and they won't let the Border Patrol in to save them out in the river. This is happening. That Supreme Court made that ruling, and Governor Greg Abbott of Texas is completely defying it, kind of saying, basically drawing on a very, very old pre-Civil War, and one of the impetuses for the Civil War, an idea called nullification, which just says the states don't have to do what the federal government says. Well, that's one of the things we fought the Civil War over. I mean, that was settled, okay, with a very, very bloody, horrifying war.
Texas did not win, incidentally.
No, Texas did not win. And so there's Governor Abbott is basically saying, come and get it. We're not gonna do it, and openly defying the Supreme Court ruling. Now that happened back in the 50s during desegregation,
60s,
and
yeah.
Little Rock, during the civil rights movement. And Governor Eisenhower back in the 50s sent in to Little Rock, sent in the National Guard to escort the black school children into the school. And we had those moments in fairly recent history. This is another one. And here's the thing that got me. It's one thing for Abbott to do this, and he's going to try and who knows, at the moment it's a standoff. The federal government hasn't done anything, and Texas is sort of standing its ground. Suddenly we've got 25 Republican governors all signing a letter of support for what Abbott is doing, and they're pledging to send in their National Guard to help guard the border. And not only guard the border, they're pledging, and this is Donald Trump saying this is what they should do, they should help the Texas authorities round up and start deporting people back over the border. This just totally on state authority. Now, this is a challenge that we have not seen in many, many years in this country. And they're talking about this governor from Oklahoma. I think his name is Stitt. I can't remember how. He's out there on TV just saying, yeah, we're going to confront the National Guard. Now, they don't understand how this works. Joe Biden can nationalize the National Guard.
Right.
That.
It's basically
they're federal troops.
Yeah.
And that's the end of that. They don't have any, this is all settled law, but this level of defiance, this kind of thing, we have not seen in many, many years, and it's extremely dangerous, and it's done specifically for the purpose of helping Donald Trump. They want to have this chaos at the border. They want to have immigration as the top issue, and in both Iowa and in New Hampshire.
And the idea is that they want Biden to federalize the troops,
yes,
because then it becomes, we need to take back Washington.
Right. We have to take back Washington. I mean, this is, in many ways, it's an extension of January 6th. What you're seeing is this defiance on the part of Republicans for the rule of law, just generally speaking, and the constitutional order that we've had for the last 100 years. They are basically just, saying, no, we're not doing that anymore. And I'm not trying to, get hyperbolic here and say, oh, we're on the verge of a civil war. I mean, I don't know. I guess it's possible. But really what's happening is this just unraveling of the national, sort of consensus about what the Constitution means and what the responsibilities of leaders are.
As a political matter, Mitch McConnell over the past couple of days has made a big effort to say, Oh, I did not say in this meeting what others said I said.
What he said, yeah.
So on Wednesday, he said, immigration's dead, guys.
Yeah.
Trump wants this to be a political issue, so we cannot resolve this. Now, let's be clear. It was going to die in the House anyways, but the Senate was going to try and convince people. And then on Thursday, he came in and said, no, it's still alive. That to me indicates that he realized that Biden could jump in and before Biden does anything in terms of Texas, say, we've tried to do something in the Senate. It has been reported that Donald Trump quashed it. It's not happening. So this is why we've got this problem in Texas. And they're not agreeing with it, even though we're trying to fix it in the Senate. Now, none of this is like really, doesn't really match up to the reality of these things. But this is how you do the politics of it. And that McConnell realized that. And so he had to come out and say, no, it's still alive. Donald Trump didn't kill it. So that the governors can play out this thing and make it a campaign issue. So
that's right. And he was trying to spare his, like he wants to win back the Senate next November. And he suddenly realized, oh my God, it's getting out that the Senate is under the thumb of Donald Trump and he's doing whatever. And he's got states where that's a problem. And that, these senators need to have independence. And also some of the senators, I mean, I give some credit to people like, Tom Tillis or what's his name? I can't think of the other one.
Tillis was saying, release the minutes from Wednesday because I wasn't crazy. That's what he said.
Yeah, and I mean they're pissed. They're pissed that McConnell is trying to play both sides on this, and also recognizing that this image of the U.S. Senate being under the thumb of Donald Trump. It's one thing to be to have the MAGA weirdos in the House be listening, doing whatever Donald Trump wants. But once the U.S. Senate is doing that, I mean, this guy's not in office and he's basically dictating the policy. So it's very interesting. And keep your eye on what's going on with these red state governors, because they're going to put on a big show here. And we'll have to see whether or not it has the effect they think it will. And I'm not sure about that, because there's something really, I mean, for their people, for the MAGA crowd, they're going to love it. I don't know if everybody else wants to see this in this country. I don't know, but we'll see. Yeah.
All I can say is that we dropped the ball with Jade Helm. We should have wrapped this stuff. We should have wrapped this stuff up 10 years ago. There should be, it should be like, I don't know, maybe Texas is part of like I don't know, like a greater Nevada or something. I'm not exactly sure what it was.
We had our chance and we blew it, but
we could have sold off half of it.
South Oklahoma.
Exactly. All right. Well, Heather Parton Digby, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for your time today.
Oh, thanks for having me. I enjoyed it. Have a great weekend, you guys.
You too.
All right, folks. We're going to head into the fun half of the program. I don't know if we'll get to some calls. We might. We'll see.
Some fun Tim Pool stuff.
We got some fun Tim Pool.
Oh.
Honestly, what you did to Tim Pool, it is really, you ruined his fun.
So I haven't seen this yet.
It all really did start with you, where like his whole, Tim Pool IRL or whatever that name of that show is, was all about getting together, him being able to blow off some steam, show,
hospitality.
Guests, hospitality, have some sush, do some tricks. And ever since you like blew that wide open,
but no vaping,
yeah. Ever since you did that, his job isn't fun anymore.
He's depressed,
and he's depressed.
Really?
Yeah. And
damn, did I really do that much damage?
The way like you're being so flippant about it is a little bit. I'm a little disappointed.
Typical bitch.
Yeah, mean girl. Some people don't know the effect that they have, and they just go through life.
It's amazing,
ruining people's whole dispositions.
I'm really feeling it now because I'm in the return to high school mode, and so
I'm a mean high school bully, I guess.
Can't wait to go see the guys have a little sushi. We didn't even know what sushi was. I had never even heard of sushi. Growing up in Worcester, never even heard of it. Folks.
Glad you made that connection between those two thoughts.
Well, yeah.
Sam's going back in time.
Yeah.
I'm lost. It's going to take me like 2 weeks to recover from this. Folks, it's your support that makes this show possible. You can become a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. When you do, you not only get access to the free show, free of commercials, but you also can do stuff like I am the show via the app. The app is free, but it text Bernie bro. Sam, would you like to respond to reports by the renowned journalist R.M. Brown that MR is not a real show and all produced by AI? Your comments, please. I'm not even going to address that until we get to the fun half.
I should just say, I will be on R.M. Brown's YouTube channel today at 5 o'clock Eastern time.
Wow.
So, we're doing a live stream.
Whoa. All right.
Man will be asking me some hard questions.
That's when you can address the allegations.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
Stand before the court.
Folks, it's your support that makes the show possible. Join themajorityreport.com. Also, don't forget Just Coffee. JustCoffee.coop. It's a co-op, and they are fair trade coffee, hot chocolate, featuring the Majority Report blend, but other blends too. JustCoffee.coop. Use the coupon code majority. You get 10% off. Great deals on those coffee, and it's delicious coffee. Emma, ESVN.
Yesterday, Bradley and I gave our picks against the spread for divisional weekend. We talked about not divisional, conference championship weekend. We've only got 3 NFL games left in the season. It's very, very sad. But we also did talk about Harbaugh going to the Chargers, what that means, Tom Telesco going to the Raiders, how that was ridiculous, and the controversy with the horrible case of sexual assault with the World Juniors team in Canada. YouTube.com/ESPN show.
Matt.
So like I said, RM Brown 5 Eastern on Friday here. Sunday, patreon.com/Left Reckoning. Heidi Matthews, Tanya Cerisier. We're talking about sexual violence and the Israel's use of a propaganda term like the Hamas rapist regime. And we kind of following up the conversation we had with Lily Lynch about sexual violence in conflicts, both using them as justification to expand war and also war as context for sexual violence. So patreon.com/Left Reckoning for that.
See you in the fun half. Left is best. Jamie and I may have a disagreement.
Yeah, you can't just say whatever you want about people just because you're rich.
I have an absolute right to mock them on YouTube.
He's up there buggy whipping like he's the boss.
I am not your employer.
You know, I'm tired of the negativity.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset you. You're nervous? You're a little bit upset? You're riled up?
Yeah, maybe you should rethink your defense of that, you fucking idiots.
We're just going to get rid of you.
All right.
But dude, you want to smoke this joint?
Yes.
Do you feel like you are a dinosaur?
That's some good shit.
Exactly. I'm happy now.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win.
Oh, hell yeah.
Now listen to me. 2, 3, 4, 5 times. 847-906-501-457. 2, 38, 56, 27. 1/2. 5 8s. 3.9 billion.
Wow.
He's the ultimate math nerd.
Don't you see?
Why don't you get a real job instead of spewing vitriol and hatred, you left-wing Limbaugh?
Everybody's taking their dumb juice today.
Come on, Sammy!
Dance, dance, dance.
Rand Paul.
I had my first post-coital scene with a woman. I'm hoping to add more moves to my repertoire. All I have is the dip and the swirl.
Fine, we can double dip.
Yes, this is a perfect moment.
No.
Wait, what?
You make under $1 million a year. You're scum. You're nothing.
Excuse me? Fuck you, you fucking liberal elite. I think you belong in jail.
Thank you for saying that, Sam. You're a horrible, despicable person.
All right, gonna take a quick break. I want to take a moment to talk to some of the libertarians out there. Take whatever vehicle you want to drive to the library. What you're talking about is jibber jabber.
Classic. I'm feeling more chill already.
Good. Donald Trump can kiss all of our asses.
Hey Sam, hey Andy, you guys ready to do some evil Hitler was such an idiot.
That guy might be a Nazi.
Agree.
No.
Death to America.
You.
Yes.
Wow.
Wow, that's weird. No way. Unbelievable. This guy's got a really good hook.
Throw our hands up.
Ooh.
Wow.
But Sam, I gotta get off.
No worries. Let's. I want to just flesh this out a little bit. I mean, look, it's a free speech issue. If you don't like me,
Hey, shut up!
Thank you for calling into the Majority Report. Sam will be with you shortly.
Worcester Ice Cats 40th Doherty reunion sounds like a parade of nightmares. Good luck. Thank you. Look for the Palestinian flag they added in the foyer after students advocated. We're not going in the actual operating building. We're going in the old building before they tear it down.
Symbolic, huh?
I mean, it's not symbolic. Like, I haven't been in that cafeteria for 40 years. It's exciting.
Okay, yeah.
All right. Pause it. Sam, are you going to comment on how Mark Maron and Janine Garofalo have been guests on David Cross's Senses Working Overtime, and you haven't before Tim Poole does? Does John Benjamin have to do conflict mediation between you and Cross? There's so many people who are going to go on that podcast before he gets to me. He's going to have to be doing that for like 8 years, I think, before I get on there. I mean, if Benjamin hasn't even been on yet. He's got so many people to go through. Hogtown frown. I got some updates on what Taibbi's reporting on. I thought you guys might like to know. He's gone full in on is the fix already in for the election? Good times. I can't even. All right, let's look at this. This was mentioned in the conversation between Amy Goodman and Diana Bout, who is a Palestinian human rights attorney. The ICJ ruling was read off by Judge Joan Donahue, who is the president of the International Court of Justice. And I think she was formerly in the State Department, right? Under the Obama administration. She's now full-time on this court. These judges are not there to represent their country. But judges tend to,
They'll have,
you have a perspective that is formulated based upon the country you come from. This is a little bit long, but it's really worth listening to the complete list of orders to Israel regarding the South African case against Israel. Here it is.
I shall now read out the operative part of the order. For these reasons, the court indicates the following provisional measures. 1. By 15 votes to 2, the State of Israel shall, in accordance with its obligations under the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide in relation to the Palestinians in Gaza, take all measures within its power to prevent the commission of all acts within the scope of Article 2 of the Convention, in particular, A, killing members of the group, B, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, C, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part, and D, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group. In favor, President Donahue, Vice President Gevorgian, Judges Tomka, Abraham, Benuna, Youssef, Shway, Bandari, Robinson, Salam, Iwasawa, Nolte, Charlesworth, Brandt, Judge Ad hoc Moseneke. Against, Judge Sebatinde, Judge Ad hoc Barak. By 15 votes to 2, the State of Israel shall ensure, with immediate effect, that its military does not commit any acts described in point 1 above. In favor, President Donahue, Vice President Gevorgian, Judges Tomka, Abraham, Benuna, Youssef, Shway, Bandari, Robinson, Salam, Iwasawa, Nolte, Charlesworth, Brandt, Judge Ad hoc Moseneke.
Total DEI is throwing this whole thing.
Against, Judge Sabatinde, Judge Ad hoc Barak. By 16 votes to 1, the State of Israel shall take all measures within its power to prevent and punish the direct and public incitement to commit genocide in relation to members of the Palestinian group in the Gaza Strip. In favor, President Donahue, Vice President Gevorgian, Judges Tomka, Abraham, Benuna, Yusuf, Shway, Bandari, Robinson, Salam, Iwasawa, Nolte, Charlesworth, Brandt, Judges Ad hoc Barak, Moseneke. Against, Judge Sabatinde. By 16 votes to 1, the State of Israel shall take immediate and effective measures to ensure the provision of urgently needed basic services and humanitarian assistance to address the adverse conditions of life faced by Palestinians in the Gaza Strip.
Can we just pause it for
In
1 second?
favor.
You don't need to take it down. I just wanted to note that the Israeli judge voted yes on that. There was
Yes.
only one that.
When you hear 15 to 2 means that everybody except for the Israeli judge and the Ugandan judge, when you hear 16 to 1, that means everybody, including the Israeli judge, except for the Ugandan judge. And that last one is Israel must provide basic services. That would be water, electricity, at the very least, and humanitarian aid. All of those things.
Effective measures to ensure the provision of urgently needed basic services and humanitarian assistance to address the adverse conditions of life faced by Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. In favor, President Donahue, Vice President Gevorgian, Judges Tomka, Abraham, Benuna, Yusuf, Shway, Bandari, Robinson, Salam, Iwasawa, Nolte, Charlesworth, Brandt, Judges Ad hoc Barak, Moseneke. Against, Judge Sabatinde. By 15 votes to 2, the State of Israel shall take effective measures to prevent the destruction and ensure the preservation of evidence related to allegations of acts within the scope of Article 2 and Article 3 of the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide against members of the Palestinian group in the Gaza Strip. In favor, President Donahue, Vice President Gevorgian, Judges Tomka, Abraham, Benuna, Yusuf, Shway, Bandari, Robinson, Salam, Iwasawa, Nolte, Charlesworth, Brandt, Judge Ad hoc Moseneke. Against, Judge Sabatinde, Judge Ad hoc Barak. By 15 votes to 2, the State of Israel shall submit a report to the court on all measures taken to give effect to this order within 1 month as from the date of the order. In favor, President Donahue, Vice President Gevorgian, Judges Tomka, Abraham, Benuna, Yusuf, Shway, Bandari, Robinson, Salam, Iwasawa, Nolte, Charlesworth, Brandt, Judge Ad hoc Moseneke. Against, Judge Sabatinde, Judge Ad hoc Barak. I shall now call upon the registrar to read the...
So there it is, and they have got to come back and report on these measures that they're taking. And the point has been made before that for Israel to provide basic services and humanitarian aid for Palestinians in Gaza, and to protect evidence of potential genocide that it may have committed, like it is going to be difficult to justify their assault and maintain their assault, at the very least, at the level that it's been under these circumstances.
It's basically they lay out there that the attacks on Palestinian civilians must immediately cease, right? That humanitarian aid must be allowed to go through, because I headlined this yesterday, but there were I don't know what their affiliation was, but Israeli protesters blocking aid trucks at the
51
border.
aid trucks, right?
And which is also in keeping with the fact that there have been reports of the IDF going through, because they inspect all the trucks before they come in because they don't want to give the Hamas terror, whatever. And that they'll turn trucks around if they have, basically, if they deem it like fairly unacceptable, even for small reasons. And the fact that Israel has to come back in a month and submit a response, like it's good news. It's really good news. And, it's going to be quite difficult, as you say, I think, for Israel to conduct itself in the way that it had been previously. But I don't know. The United States backing it unequivocally is going to give them some shield. But
yeah, and Ali Abu Nima echoes the point you made earlier. A ceasefire is what you demand in an armed conflict. In a genocide, you demand an immediate end to all genocidal acts, and that is exactly what the ICJ ordered with immediate effect. And this is, please stop helping Israel spin its historic defeat as a win.
That's exactly right. I think that people focusing on this as, because they didn't call for a ceasefire actually does aid Israel's propaganda about it, saying that like their military campaign is justified. But basically all of the acts that they lay out there are in keeping with a ceasefire.
Yeah.
So I don't think they needed to say the word, especially because also the other point is that their jurisdiction is over the member bodies in the ICJ, and Hamas is not recognized, I think, as a partner in the ICJ's case here, if I'm not mistaken. So they don't necessarily feel like they can enforce a ceasefire with Hamas.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it'd be nice if the decision came back and it solved the entire problem.
Right.
That's ultimately not within the power of the ICJ.
Yeah.
Small d Democrats. So Israel's just not going to submit that report, right? I mean, I'd be surprised if they do, but who knows? But the bottom line is that this is less about, the value of this is less about what the court can compel Israel to do, but rather what the court's findings and rulings, how they impact the domestic politics in this country and in other Western countries, for the most part, that have been supportive of Israel. And also, arguably the Israeli public, to the extent that that has any implications. But someone more versed in how these things work could speculate better than I could. But I think over the next couple of weeks, we're going to start seeing mechanisms and things happen that this triggers, not necessarily that are, necessarily put stuff into order. But like I say, we're going to see some prosecutor in Spain or some prosecutor in, I don't know how the system works necessarily in Canada. I just remember Spain was one of the first to come up with the torture of the United States, file cases. We're going to start to see this domestically in other countries, and it's going to impact public opinion. It's going to make it harder for politicians to be supportive of Israel, at the very least.
Yeah.
At the very least.
So like those State Department flacks that come out and say, like John Kirby, that it's meritless and without basis, South Africa's case. This is proof that it is with a lot of merit.
Right.
Because that's literally what they were ruling
We're
on.
going to play clips on Monday of reporters asking Kirby or whoever the state, Miller, okay, now that it's not baseless, what are you going to do about it?
Right.
What are you going to do if Israel doesn't provide this report? What are you going to do if there are continued reports of Israel doing exactly what the ICJ just said for them not to do? This is all going to create much more pressure, the very least, on the American government, I think. We're going to see there's going to be some resolution introduced in the Senate. I would bet next week. That's what we're going to start to see out of this, I think. Incidentally, or I guess unrelated, And this is not to minimize what happened on October 7th. But it is relevant, at least according to this host on Israel's Channel 13. It's relevant enough for Israeli television to point out that there were initial reports that gained momentum and expanded in Western media in the wake of October 7th that were totally either fabricated or exaggerated or mistakenly promoted, whatever it was. This is all in Hebrew. I'll read the translations. But the reason why they're airing this is because it's important to have some accuracy. And I will say this, like we mentioned that, the Israeli government only refers to the Hamas rape regime. And walking to work today, I saw a sign that said Hamas equals rape. There is no doubt that the nature of the atrocities on October 7th have done a lot of work for the Israeli government's justifying of them killing thousands of children, innocent men and women for that matter, and for leveling Gaza. And certainly it's done a lot of work for people who are supportive of Israel's, right to defend itself in this manner. And so it's important to parse out what was real and what wasn't. Here it is. This is the first. This is the Israeli host of this show. Good evening to you. Go ahead. We'll be talking about the new hostage deal outline. Will it be able to end the negotiations deadlock? But before that, watch the following footage of the Kafir Brigade commander from Channel 14. We arrive in Kibbutz Be'er, and there I encounter two main images of the battle, apropos of the enemy's brutality. One is a nursery school with innocent children. They were butchered, killed. You see the children inside the house? 8 babies died. And another image that caught my attention when I saw Jenya, may she rest in peace, an elderly woman from Kibbutz Be'er, and I see the number engraved on her arm. And you say she went through the Holocaust in Auschwitz and in the end died in Kibbutz Be'er? That's not something but that you can even understand it. Well, no 8 babies were killed in Be'er. This is the host again, according to the kibbutz spokesperson, and there's no woman named Jenya in Be'eri. Watch some more footage from not long ago of a soldier speaking. There were also children here, babies, who were hanged on a laundry line, really, in one line. It was very hard to see. When I saw it, it shocked me. You don't really understand what you're seeing in front of your eyes. Is it a picture or is it really reality? It's very, very hard to understand. Buskila is talking about a supposed event in Kfar Aza, but in Kfar Aza they made it clear long ago that this event simply didn't happen. By the way, he said the things he was told that it didn't happen. In a tour of foreign news journalists who came there. And pay attention to what the police spokesman said to the foreign media not long ago. Pay attention. A pregnant woman cut open. Oh.
Guys, the things that happen are so sick. This is not a Netflix show, and it's not a cable news show. None of that. No, this is real life.
That also didn't happen. So many terrible, cruel things happened. some of the most cruel things that can be done to a human being on 7th of October. Mickey Rosenthal, why were these things that didn't happen said? All right, and they go into debating about why that happened. Some of it may be people hear a rumor and they say it like they saw it. Some of these people may be lying. Some of them may have been mistaken as to what happened. But we know how this was all utilized. It was a way of, foaming the runway, desensitizing people so that there was some justification for the images and for the awareness of what is being done to 2.2 million people, 2.3 million people in Gaza.
I mean, the question is too, why do you have to make something up when 1,200 Israelis die on a day? Why would you have to make these kinds of outrageous claims up? And it's because the level of death that is being inflicted, the number of Palestinians being killed right now by the tens of thousands, you need to continuously ramp up what the atrocities look like, especially to an audience in the West that want the West to say, well, what if that happened to us, the collective us, right? Like what people in the US and Germany or the UK that are supporting Israel, what they identify as us, and what would that be like for you to see babies hanging on clotheslines? So in order to justify the completely disproportionate response in death toll numbers, in the actual figures, you have to make the atrocities so much more vivid than the numbers would suggest. But when you bomb somebody, they may burn to death. Children's heads explode. There's
not to mention reports of rape that made people resign, rape of Palestinians that made members of our civil service resign already in the previous few months.
So how do you make the deaths of Israelis matter more than the deaths of Palestinians, just from a propaganda perspective? You make the deaths more gruesome to the public.
And we should also say that, part of it, the value to the Israeli government of these stories is one thing to the Western media and one thing to also their domestic consumption.
Yep.
This is, if you're Bibi Netanyahu, you don't want to leave office, make sure that within Israeli society, and there's a lot of other pressures, no doubt, within Israeli society, not to both dehumanize Palestinians and to, essentially prevent these people from feeling any sympathy and the justification going on. I mean, so how this happens is almost largely irrelevant, but the point is that the people should be aware. There are stories that went around, the justifications are being used to justify this completely disproportionate response. Without even contextualizing this. Put aside, international law says occupied people can fight the occupation in any way necessary, and that occupiers have no right to self-defense in international law. Put that aside. You just look at the disproportionate nature of this, and you can see that it's a slaughter. And now we have the International Court of Justice. And no one, I didn't hear anybody predict 15-2 would be the closest vote.
Yeah.
You can go and look at Norman Finkelstein and see what he was predicting wasn't even close to this.
Well, I mean,
nobody.
Our guests thought that they would win. I'm sorry, what was?
But that's his job,
right? But that's his. What was the name of the international human rights lawyer we had on?
Francis Boyle.
Francis Boyle. I mean, but he didn't even predict that either.
No, I mean it was this is shatters a lot of the arguments about how ridiculous it is to use the word genocide and how none of this is the case. And, this is nothing like Dresden. I mean, all of that, none of it, it all falls apart. All falls apart. All right, let's go to, we'll go to Rogan later. I don't want to.
It's
so
fine.
stupid.
Yeah.
But what can you do with this information?
All right, wait.
Whether or not it's true.
I want to talk about this Texas stuff for a moment because this is pretty nuts. Supposedly, today is the deadline for Texas to allow the federal border patrol to enter into a Texas state park to take down razor wire that has, I think, reportedly led to multiple people drowning trying to cross the Rio Grande. And from what I can tell, the park borders the Rio Grande. It is an area where it is most easily crossed. And to prevent people from crossing, the Texas National Guard put razor wire in the water and buoys and stuff like that.
And razor wire that would be hidden to wrapped around barrels underneath, submerged. So like a pregnant woman got caught in it and drowned and died.
And both inhibiting the ability of the Border Patrol to go save these people, but also the Border Patrol says we're not going to have it there. And the Supreme Court, in a case, we've already heard this, 5-4, decided that the supremacy clause of the Constitution still exists. And federal agents have the right to remove that from the American border. It's not the Texas border. It's the American border. And Texas has been given until the end of day today to basically allow federal agents in or to explain what it is, under what authority, and in what case you think that the federal government can't come in and do this. And then it's really a question of, I think the Biden administration is going to take the weekend and figure out, do we nationalize the Texas National Guard? Here is Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton trying to justify why Texas doesn't have to follow what the Supreme Court of the United States says.
No, it's very important. The Constitution would never have been ratified. The federal government was giving powers that were specifically granted by the states, not vice versa. We retained everything else. We did not grant them the authority to control the border and then say, we're not going to protect you. That would never, there's no way on earth. DeSantis is right. There's no way on earth that the founders would have allowed that to happen. And there's no way that Texas would have joined the union if that meant that we couldn't protect ourselves.
And what the hell happened at the Supreme Court? All questions to ask.
Because it's quite clear. It's quite clear in the Constitution that, Ken Paxton, or not Ken Paxton, Greg Abbott's letter, we read it yesterday, is essentially saying that they're at war with the migrants that are coming over the border and that it's an invasion. And that is the justification for them flouting the federal authority over the border. But news for the Republicans down in Texas: you cannot declare war as a state. You are a part of the union. I know that that's not necessarily what everybody wants down there, but sure, you want to leave, I'm fine with it at this point. Jokingly, obviously. But like the declaration of war and then the defense that would come from that has to come from the federal government. So it's so unconstitutional on its face.
I'd also add, like, did Texas originally ratify the U.S. Constitution? I feel like
don't think they were one of the original.
The U.S. Constitution predated Texas by about 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
We sort of forced that on you guys.
And And then it seems to me you had to sort of take another whack at your own constitution after you lost the Civil War.
Yeah, I've eaten at the Texas Embassy in London. It is a Mexican restaurant now.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Well, Kristi Noem also said last night that she doesn't believe that the 13 colonies would have ratified the Constitution.
Is that right?
Yeah.
She doesn't believe that?
Here we go.
Based on what evidence?
Absolutely. Every single one of them should join us. This is about our Constitution. This is about us standing united. The 13 original colonies would have never signed the Constitution or ratified it if they didn't know that they didn't have the protections to defend themselves. And so that's really what this is all about. I'm going to be at the border tomorrow. I'm going to be there to tell the Texas National Guard, to tell those Border Patrol agents, those folks that are in very difficult situations in the public administration within the state of Texas, that we're not only with them, that we have continued to be with them for the last several years. South Dakota has deployed our National Guard to support them and stand alongside them 3 separate times over the last several years, and we're going to continue to do that. A lot of people talk and a lot of people criticize. We take action. And right now I'm so proud of what
I don't need to hear this anymore. The 13 colonies, it's not like somebody foisted this on them.
Yeah,
They did too out of self-preservation. And I think like if there was one issue, if they could look into the future that they may have like hesitated on ratifying the Constitution, it probably would have been slavery.
Now, one of these guys, I mean, somebody, maybe they didn't realize that they had wrote this, but this is the supremacy clause. Can you pull up and put it up? This Constitution and the laws of the United States shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties thereof made, or which shall be made under the authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land. And the judges in every state shall be bound thereby. Anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary, notwithstanding.
That's a real thing.
That's a real thing.
That's a real thing. How about this for a real thing? This is Article 1, Section 10. No state shall, without the consent of Congress, lay any duty of tonnage, keep troops or ships of war in time of peace, enter into any agreement or compact with another state or with a foreign power, or engage in war unless actually invaded or in some such imminent danger as will not admit of delay.
You have to feel for these guys, Abbott and Paxton and Noem, because they were hoping for something much different when they heard there was a supremacy clause in the Constitution.
And the thing is that honestly, like, just the simple act of us, did you put it up? Did you put it up? Just the simple act of us putting up there is far more than the vast majority of the citizens of these states that are like looking for them to fight the federal government have seen. Like this is, there is no doubt in my mind, having, had my couple of trips in going around and talking to people like at the 9/12 thing on the Washington Mall. The number of people who would cite the Constitution to me, but also would then, under just 1 or 2 more questions, say, well, I haven't read the whole thing yet.
Yeah.
Glenn Beck told me about it.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, yeah, I thought these folks were supposed to freaking love the Constitution.
They do. It's just that they aren't, sometimes you don't want to get too familiar with something you love, because then you find out you don't really.
You don't actually read the Bible either.
Noem is besmirching the founders there by basically saying that they didn't know and they were not able to foresee the kind of situations that we'd be dealing with. It's almost as if the document should be a living document.
Okay. So now we've established that there are a significant number of Republican governors in the country who believe that the supremacy clause is invalid for some reason, despite the fact that we had a 5-4 decision at the Supreme Court a week ago. Here is Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt, who is basically like, I'm ready for it, man. Civil War. And I guess we'll see. I have a feeling his constituents not so excited about signing up for the war.
Does the federal government have bombs?
I'll take our Air Force versus
Oklahoma's going to frack us to death.
Yeah, exactly. Oklahoma's Air Force, I understand is rather weak. But go ahead.
There's rumblings that Joe Biden should or may actually federalize the National Guard, take that power away from Greg Abbott. Let's say this showdown, that's what it is. It's a showdown. It's a showdown of power and loyalties and constitutionality. Let's say he does that. How many people say, no, you know what, screw you, Biden administration, and how many people stay and fight with Texas versus the federal things, and does that put us on course for a force-on-force conflict?
I mean, right now you've got the federal agents that are cutting the wire, and then you've got the Texas National Guard on orders to put up wire. I mean, this is a powder keg worth of tension. So it's it's a very weird situation. We certainly stand with Texas on their right to defend themselves, but Biden's going to be in a tough situation. So in other words, he's going to try to federalize these troops. In other words, put them on federal orders. And so now their allegiance technically goes to the president of the United States instead of the governor. And of course, I think a lot of Texans, these are still, they're still Texans that are weekend, they're in the National Guards. They do 1 week in a month, or when they get called up on duties by the governor.
Can you pause for just 1 second there? That might be another reason why they probably don't want to go to war with the government, because they are like, fulfilling a weekend commitment.
Can we wrap this up by Monday? Because I gotta get back to work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still have my job.
I like how, when even in sort of allied territory on Newsmax, when he's pushed to where does this go? Well, technically speaking, the president of the United States and the supremacy clause, but it's a tight situation. We don't know. Now, of course, I stand with Texas, but not literally. Not in a way I'm not going down there to fight.
It's an abuse of all these National Guards people that we're stationing them doing border patrol like this.
Yeah.
Month, or when they get called up on duties by the governor. And I think they would be in a difficult situation to protect their homeland or to follow what Biden's saying.
Literally open it.
Very interesting. But then, then you've got Oklahoma and Florida and Tennessee, and you got all these other states that would send our National Guard to help and to support the efforts of Governor Abbott. Because every state is a border state. You talked about fentanyl. The deaths in Oklahoma since I've taken office are up 500%.
Keep bragging about that.
Across the southern border. And then you think about the terrorists. Again, I just don't know what their end game is here. And I hope American people really wake up to what's happening.
Well, Governor,
wake up to what's happening. This is an article in the Texas Tribune, December 16, 2022. After Texas National Guard member died, his family got no financial payment. Lawmakers wanted to change that. In April, Bishop Evans drowned after jumping into the Rio Grande to save 2 migrants being swept away by the current. His family members will receive no financial payment. So that's what they're doing on the border. You put them on a stunt, put them into harm's way in those conditions, and they might die for nothing.
And he was trying to save migrants. Is that what he wasn't doing his job in the estimation of Governor Abbott and the Republicans down there. Doing a good job would have been to let them drown.
It's appalling. People join that thing because of the benefits, because that's how you can get.
What I took from that, though, is that they're a little bit nervous that Abbott's going too far. Because he is really tiptoeing around this. Of course, he has to come out and say, this is a real problem, blah, blah, blah. I don't know what we're going to do. And fentanyl. But
through legal
he also is saying, wait, you're going to send your National Guard down there to fight what? Because by the time your National Guard gets there, I got news for you, they're going to be federal guardsmen. They're going to be federal guardsmen. And I don't know about yours either. Yours are just going to stop on the border.
Moronic.
I think they're a little bit worried, because what happens once this happens? We really blew it with Jade Helm. Honestly, should have just wrapped it up, rolled it all up then.
Obama leaving more on the table.
Here is Candace Owens.
She's back from maternity leave.
And has left off that subject that she was making her boss upset about
Israel
before she went on maternity leave.
Also, comically short maternity leave at the Daily Wire, but I guess
it was about what our Christmas break was.
Yeah, I guess that's what she makes the big bucks for too, not to work in a workplace that's hot, that's open and friendly to women wanting to have children.
It'd be woke to get a couple months.
And she is also speculating about a civil war. I wonder, it's an odd thing, but here she is.
So I've got good news and bad news. The bad news is that we are edging very closely to a civil war. I'm serious, a true constitutional crisis happening at our border. The good news is that we have a heroic, steadfast, fortified leader who will help us through these hard times. Take a listen to Joe Biden the other night at a rally.
Don't mess with the men in America unless you want to get the benefit.
Actually, I didn't get that. Can we do that again?
Don't mess with the men in America unless you want to get the benefit.
Yeah, no, that actually doesn't sound good. So just bad news today, guys. Plus, later on in the show, we're going to discuss graphic images of Taylor Swift that are now sweeping the internet, showing her in a series of explicit acts nude.
That's a real thing.
And no, it's not real. It's actually just AI. And I'll tell you why I think it's a good thing.
Wait, but I thought, does she care that we're about to edge towards a civil war?
Yeah, sorry, are we really concerned about civil war? Or are we not,
This or like the AI images of Taylor Swift nude
committing sexual
that are a
acts?
good thing, and here, audience of likely mostly men, conservative men, enjoy it.
It's what they're like human AIs realizing what gets engagement. Okay, civil war. Say
Wait.
civil war. Say Taylor Swift.
Yeah,
I'm confused. That's the headline of the day. Is she not? Did Israel end their their attack on Gaza? She's not talking about that.
Yeah, it's different subjects that they're on a cover, like Taylor Swift,
It's just amazing that
Ariana Grande.
Yeah, she's not necessarily.
Ben said, "Hey, look, you got this maternity leave. You got a week and a half if you want it."
Yeah. They're so unserious about the Civil War stuff. Like the Civil War, ramping up to that would take like deep coordination and planning and the mobilization of troops and forces and millions of people within those states willing to fight for the cause. Or it's just like if Greg Abbott wants to do a political stunt and rope in some Texas Border Patrol people or Texas National Guard people along with him.
All right, let's go to some of the IMs here. Oh, did I call into the thing?
I think you did.
Oh. I don't. Oh, yeah, we got to go with Tim Pool then. We got to do this.
Okay.
This is too important.
This is a tough business.
What'd I do? You look very unhappy with me right now.
I just think that what you did to Tim Pool was mean.
Okay.
And look at how you've hurt his feelings.
She was offered a tour, sushi, and poker with the boys.
Like, it's one thing, but look at how sad he's become now. How none of it is worth it for him anymore. He could be making millions. Instead, he's making millions and having to work a little
Do
bit.
harder work.
This is a clip of Tim Pool, I guess from what just the other day.
Do we know who this guy is? Which one? This guy we're looking at.
This is Phil LeBon. He's a Tim Cass guy. He's actually, funnily enough, a singer of an emo band called All That
Oh,
Remains. Yeah.
right. He's All That Remains flunky. I got you.
I don't even know what that means, but is he responsible for the video where Tim Pool is like running with his sunglasses on through?
He might actually be related
saving
to
the world.
I bet he corresponds with Phil for his music. He's got Phil's a real musician.
Okay, so Tim's upset. I'm sorry to hear.
Yeah, how to best set this up?
Tim Pool is upset because something happened on the show yesterday, and he's calling out the guy who made it happen.
And he's reassessing his career.
His
trajectory.
diarrhea?
No, different.
Oh, that was something else.
No, this is sort of verbal diarrhea.
Might do if they get in charge of the government while they're
from my lefty friends.
What?
You know, is like
I think it's only fair that I don't take the heat for what you said, Jesse, and I'm not trying to be a dick, but I'm getting people attacking my character now for having had to take the show down because you made 2 allusions to killing people. So I'm not trying to be a dick right now, but like I've got 500 messages of like, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you taking the show down? Are you fucking with us? You're trying to make money.
So I thought YouTube took the show down.
No, I had to take the show down.
Okay.
I had to take the show down because you made 2 allusions within like the span of a couple minutes to murdering people.
Okay.
After I explicitly stated in the pre-show, do not make allusions to violence. Then went on to explain, we keep having people come here and saying they want people killed or people should kill people or they can be killed or things like that. 18 minutes into the show, you had
you're not having real conversations.
Pause it for 1 second. want you to go back just about 10 seconds, 15 seconds. But I think if you find yourself saying, we keep having people come on the show who are making allusions to killing people or having other people killed and killing and murdering and killing
places.
and fighting and killing. I feel like if you say those words about your show, you may need a deeper dive into this. But apparently not. It's everybody else's fault, and this is some.
And he's not even mad about the killing people so far. He's mad he had to take the show down, and that he's pissed off his fans.
Yeah, he pissed off my fans. I got to do this, or we're going to get demonetized.
And the funny thing is, it's not just YouTube. Go ahead, Bradley.
Go ahead.
To murdering people.
Okay.
After I explicitly stated in the pre-show, do not make allusions to violence. Okay. Then went on to explain, we keep having people come here and saying they want people killed, or people should kill people, or they can be killed, or things like that. 18 minutes into the show, you had made 2 allusions to, one was the helicopter thrown over the Pacific Ocean. That's kind of like a, fuck, we're gonna get hit for that probably, but we'll see what happens. But then you said you can go kill the human smugglers for all I care, and it's just like, that's it. Like, it's not a YouTube thing. It's Rumble would take us down for this. I've had the conversations with Rumble about it. And so it's a question of
free speech
for the people who are right now who are slamming me, claiming that it's a big news day and I intentionally took the show down for fake reasons to make money. No matter what platform we're on, that show would be removed and we would face legal liability.
Pause it for one second. I just want to make it clear. Yes, somebody asked this question. I want to make it absolutely clear. Before Digby came on, I had to give her the talk.
Don't
be calling for the specific killing of any individuals, and don't get confused by the 2 weapons I have behind me. That's not what we're about here.
This is not a pro-killing podcast. Or at least it can't be, because we're going to get demonetized, even on Rumble for that, bro.
It's one thing to allude to the mass killing of leftists in South America in the 70s by throwing them out of helicopters. But don't say actually go kill the human traffickers.
Yes, you can't.
Because that's an explicit death threat. I can maybe get by on the throwing people out of helicopters thing if we just say it's a joke or something like that and people don't know what's a reference to.
Also, Tim, keep this in-house. You don't need to do this on air.
This is an off-air discussion.
Except you do need to do it on air.
There's a lot of things bothering you, and you shouldn't even talk about it because I think you're responsible for this.
I probably am in a certain way, but Tim is the kind of manager, I'd imagine, that doesn't necessarily want to have a conversation that's a little tough. He might need to, have a little bit of bravery for an off-camera discussion, but he probably feels more emboldened when he's on air, that he knows
because you're not having real conversations.
Reaction. Yeah.
Who are slamming me, claiming that it's a big news day and I intentionally took the show down for fake reasons to make money.
Look on that guy's face. He doesn't know how to respond.
No matter what platform we're on, that show would be removed and we would face legal liability. And so the question is, can we have a show if we persist? That show would be deleted and that would be the end of it.
Okay.
So all I can do is say, okay, well, that's it. I tried. We take it down. That's all I can do, I suppose. And so now I get all the flack for it. It's not a fun job.
It's the best job. Have you the beanie?
I mean, I could just host my morning show where it's just me and it makes $1 million a year and not have to worry about anybody coming in. I have to worry about employees dumping bacon grease down my drains and clogging up our septic system. I don't have to worry about getting swatted 15 times and getting death threats all the time, and then having people accusing me of trying to rip them off to make money because people come on the show and don't respect the space or whatever. Man, it is stressful. I was just talking about how people come in here and they just vape, despite it's wild, dude. It's absolutely fucking wild.
Look at that guy's face.
He's thousands of dollars every week to
Tim's having a meltdown.
Accommodation. And then we get people who come out here and they just don't care about anything we do. And I'm not saying you are. It's just it builds up on you. And then when you are forced to make that difficult decision, it's all my fault. So I'm like, shit, man. I had a conversation with this prominent industry professional, a year ago, and I was like, dude, when I was just doing my morning show, I was a millionaire, working 6 hours a day, playing video games, going out for pizza, doing a morning podcast that was like number 50 in the world.
You were going out for
And then we were
pizza?
like, let's do more. Let's take on the world. Let's fucking build culture. Let's do another
You're playing
show.
a game called capitalism.
Let's go to fucking war. And now all of that money that comes in pays for employees, pays for a building, pays for infrastructure, pays for cool shit. Everyone who's a member.
Cool shit.
Like my salary that I get paid just comes
Studio
from the morning
time.
show for the most part. I say for the most part because there's profit. I'm not going to act like there's not profit.
Right, yeah.
But
My
the amount of money that we generate from memberships.
Pause it for 1
and
second,
from-
just so to be clear. My salary comes from the morning show. Now, of course, I get shareholder distribution.
Skim a little bit off the top, yeah.
Profit. I mean, to be clear in that. And
that's his compound where they all like the idea that why is an employee putting bacon grease down your damn drain, Tim? It's because everyone's freaking living
Hire a
there.
plumber, dumbass.
Yeah. Maybe just have an office space.
He's right. If you've got a septic tank, and really, I mean, in largely speaking, first of all, you take the bacon grease and you save it. Okay, you put it in a jar, you save it because it's great with other stuff, but it's only going to last for so long. And then you got to throw it out. You scoop it out with some paper towels, or you take a spoon, you put it into the garbage. You don't put it down there, particularly in the winter. It coagulates. Mm-hmm. All right.
Sure, yeah.
I'm
I mean,
sorry.
we agree about that, but if it happens, that's what the money's for.
I mean, this is. Yeah, I mean,
Sam's gonna retire.
Sam doesn't want to do this show anymore.
Do it anymore.
It was so much easier when the majority report was just you. It was so, you were happy before you had to expand into things like the AM Quickie and the merch store.
Live YouTube and then with Twitch. I got to say, poggers.
Oh.
Go ahead. Keep going.
member. Like my salary that I get paid just comes from the morning show for the most part. I say for the most part because there's profit. I'm not going to act like there's not profit.
You're playing the game called capitalism.
The amount of money that we generate from memberships and from all the ad reads that I do does not go to my salary at all. So I quite literally could just stop timcast.com, stop timcast.irl, end all of it, and I'm making the same amount of money.
Can we vote for that?
And so I absorb
Please
all
do
of
it.
this stress because
Yep.
I don't know, I'm pissed off at these cocksuckers and people like Joe Biden who are doing all this fucked up shit and burning everything to the ground. But man, it is just so brutal some days. And then you get shit like this where it's like the country is melting down around us, or maybe it's all for show. Maybe it's fake bullshit.
All right,
Maybe
pause
the
it for 1
Texas
second.
National Guard.
I got another theory. Maybe you're melting down, and the rest of the country is, just things are happening.
He seems quite concerned about legal liability right now.
God knows. Who knows?
I mean, you don't want people saying reckless things on your program. I mean, you don't want or things that are verifiably like untrue, or like calling someone a pedophile, or calling for the killing of someone individually.
He shoots from the hip, and he says some crazy things that I wouldn't feel comfortable saying. But
Yeah.
We're not Timcast.
No.
we're not Timcast, and I don't have Sush.
This is why Oscar Wilde was a socialist. He wrote in The Soul of Man under Socialism, property not merely has duties, but has so many duties that its possession to any large extent is a bore. It involves endless claims upon one, endless attention to business, endless bother. If property had simply pleasures, we could stand it, but its duties make it unbearable. In the interest of the rich, we must get rid of it. And I think we can all agree with that.
All right, let's.
And then you get shit like this where it's like the country is melting down around us, or maybe it's all for show. Maybe it's fake bullshit. Maybe the Texas National Guard is only fucking around to put on a show to make it seem like they're actually doing something so that people in this country don't rip their heads off. I mean, Brian Kemp certainly didn't do anything to oppose the Biden administration.
That's
when
a
they were
real
fucking
thing.
around with the elections.
Well,
So why would we trust him now?
That's the problem. Pretending to do
Yeah,
something can
okay.
end up
That would
doing-
now that dude is like, let's change the subject. Let's
Yes.
change the subject because that is really something. That is really something there. It's Friday, folks. I mean, we can spend a little time just mocking, and listen, I want you to also know, I should just say, we are efforting. That's what we call it in the biz. I spoke to a major industry player who said, when you're trying to get a guest on, you're efforting. We're efforting trying to get Tim Heidecker on just because of his journalism that he did last week regarding Tim's like emergency evacuation of his studio to evacuate.
Yeah.
But that is, but yes. And for people who are accusing us for putting Tim through our whiny filter, we did not do that.
No, that's just his natural voice.
But he doesn't sound like, honestly, I mean, not very based of him, Tim Pool, to be worried about monetization and these kinds of things. I thought he cared about free speech. And yet, it always comes down to the bottom line. I guess that's the case.
He could just be playing video games and making $1 million talking about Jussie Smollett, but, you know.
But he has, like, the weight of the world on his shoulders.
I'm in favor of that.
No, take it easy, Tim. Let, Moonlord or whatever take over the compound. And
Well, I'm sorry that he's not feeling great these days.
Yeah. Well, I had crocodile sentiments coming from you. Totally crocodile sentiments. We all know. We all know that you're not.
That's true.
You go through the trouble of extending hospitality out to people, and they just laugh at you.
I didn't respect the space.
Oh, this is. Should we do the Navarro thing, or which I want to do one of these two, 11 or 12? Let's do 12. Peter Navarro, who was Donald Trump's advisor, economic advisor, he claims that he basically ran the COVID response and wanted more of a response, and then sort of backed off that. And he was called to testify in front of Congress. And this is why I said the same thing about Hunter Biden. You get subpoenaed by Congress, you got to go. People have shenanigans, and now I guess he's agreed to go ultimately after his stunt. Good. Because we need to have Congress have the ability to call people to testify in front of them. We need Congress to be able to do oversight. Navarro decided that he is not only a genius when it comes to pandemics and economics and geopolitics, he also decided that he is an expert on the law. And despite the fact that a court said, you need to go testify, he refused to do it. And now he's been sentenced to 4 months in jail for contempt of Congress. And here he is speaking outside, and it really is, it's mean that people are standing behind him and blowing whistles and holding signs. This is worth watching. This is almost more punishment.
So what I'm going to do is say a few words, and I'm going to have several of these fine attorneys behind me say a few words.
These whistles are coming from
the
people
top
behind
line
him.
here is that
knock it off.
Mr. Yeah, the top line here is that Mr. Woodward has already filed the appeal in this case. This is a case of first impressions that I have said from day one is destined for the Supreme Court. It is a case that really asks the important question of whether a senior White House aide and alter ego of the president can be compelled to testify by Congress. And this is where we're at. Unfortunately, the opposition behind us won't let this be heard, but we're going to do our best here. The one thing
Okay, so what about Hunter Biden? But like, if someone who's working for the president can't be called to be questioned by Congress, what about the kids of presidents?
Well,
I mean, like,
there is something called executive privilege, and there is an argument that the president needs to be able to get advice that is candid and not subject to being made public, if it is within the performing the duties of the president. But overthrowing the Constitution is one of the most explicitly non-presidential things you can do.
Yeah.
And this has been argued out in court, and they're not looking to ask questions like, how did you advise China? How did you advise this? No, it was, what part did you play in the coup attempt, in part which involved January 6th? That's why I think some of these supporters, are supporters of a guy named Harry Dunn, who is a former a Capitol Police officer who is running in Maryland for Congress. I know nothing about his candidacy or that guy, but I just saw them put up a sign for it. And I think it's, people are talking like Navarro's got to talk about his role in this scheme to attempt to ignore the results of the January of the 2020 election. So that's fun.
Yes.
That was fun stuff. All right, let's read some IMs and get out of here.
I have actually something else if you want. There's a Ben Shapiro, a rap featuring Ben Shapiro. I think it might be AI.
This feels very Friday. You
Yeah.
gotta do it.
So this is a Canadian rapper named Tom MacDonald who has made his name, I think, by having certain mental breakdowns and being an anti-COVID guy and some other stuff. So a big conspiracy related fellow here, and here he is rapping with Ben Shapiro.
They're rapping together?
Well, we'll see.
Let's look at the stats. I've got the facts. My money like Liz, my pockets are fat. Homie, I'm epic. Don't
Oh no, he's actually doing it.
This is AI, I'm pretty sure.
You're blowing money on strippers and cars. You go into prison, I'm on television. Dogs, no one knows who you are. Keep hating on me on the internet. My comment section all woke Karens. And I make racks off compound interest. Y'all live with your parents. Nikki, take some notes. I just did this for fun. All my people download this. Let's get a Billboard #1.
Okay.
That's got to be AI. Well,
I know what I'm listening to this weekend.
oh yeah, I'm going to put that on my Gashio Blow playlist, along with the Carrie Lake.
In September 2019,
And I-
McDonald, let's see. he
Labeled
bu-
it Party Time. What?
After Eminem released a series of NFTs as part of his Shady Con event with Nifty Gateway, McDonald purchased one, and Eminem produced an instrumental called Stan's Revenge for $100,000.
Sean Fain 2024. Oh, Sam. Oh, hey, I didn't see you there. Don't mind me while I slide into this ad read. LOL. Not sure I follow that. Serious business. How about Sebene? Sebene.
For the N at the. Okay.
Really cool. Court case against Biden, Blinken, and Defense Secretary Austin charging failure to prevent complicity in genocide also begins today in Oakland by the Center for Constitutional Rights. It's being live streamed all day on CCR's channel. Oh, excellent. Brooklyn Best. Hey, I'm our crew. Can you discuss how New York City's bill requiring cops to log police stops and Eric Adams' veto of the bill? NYC News Media has taken the mayor's side, which is this will burden the police force and increase crime, which seems ridiculous. But what are your thoughts? I have not followed that. We'll look into it. Sam's Tight Pants. Guys, no, that isn't notable. Trump literally got more write-in votes in the Democratic primary than ceasefire did. It's okay to say that strategy was way too late in being picked up. I think it is notable. I think with some, sort of like run-up, that could have been much higher. It's time to declare victory, folks. PCE measures this morning showed core inflation dropping to 2.9%, just above the Fed's target. The 3-month and 6-month annualized measures are at 2% or below. PCE is the Fed's inflation measure, not CPI. Barring a surprise, the Fed will cut in March and the economy will continue to improve. The lowering of rates should increase affordability on the margins, whether on mortgages, auto loans, and the like. We've arrived, folks. Keep hanging in there. Not Nick Fuentes. Hello, Sam. I'm a Mexican national born in Mexico, naturalized U.S. citizen in Texas. I've been considering carrying my U.S. passport at all times when traveling from state to state due to the bill in Oklahoma drafted by State Representative Jay Humphrey that makes it illegal to be Hispanic in Oklahoma in an attempt to crack down on gang crime in that state. When he amended the bill to change the wording from Hispanic to illegal immigrant, makes us Hispanic Americans unwelcome in Oklahoma. It seems in the eyes of the Republican, we're always unwelcome in America. It worries me since my fiance is a Mexican national with a fiance visa in process for adjustment of status. Can you cover that, Humphrey, in your show and find out who helped draft his bill? Yeah, will you look into that, Bradley? Ryan and Callie, does anyone besides Biden really believe the fascist Israeli government gives an F about the lives of hostages and would in fact prefer it if Hamas killed them because it proves it's an excuse for genocide? I mean, I think there's a lot of people in Israel who agree with that assessment. Space Lennon, pick up the phone. I'm going to call in from 208 to talk about our efforts to unite the NEA and the AFT, those are teachers unions, before our state and national assemblies to call for PAC contribution strikes. Call our union to endorse ceasefire without endorsements for candidates opposed to ceasefire. I'd like to discuss my rebuttal article for the NEA, publishing an article decrying the rise of campus anti-Semitism, which particularly conflated Judaism with Zionism. This is actionable. Help me out. Email us that. We obviously didn't take phone calls today. 208. Oh, keep an eye out for next week. Steamboats. Willie, already read that. Country Mouse Tech. Emma's correct. If you're undeclared, you declare at the check-in desk and undeclare after submitting your ballot. If you're undeclared, switching from Democrat is, you got to do that in advance, I guess. Bayerman 12. Read Mentum's piece on Biden and Israel. Biden was as bloodthirsty for Arab blood as even the most war hawk Republican presidents. Biden's calls for no mercy on women and children during the Lebanese war should disqualify him from office. The guy's a bloodthirsty maniac. Oh, check that piece out. Vermont Ben. The only holdout Republican governor who isn't supporting this Texas nonsense is Phil Scott in Vermont. It's amazing to see so many blue checks on Twitter blow up Scott to stand with Texas. North Dakota Llama. Ben Shabibo just dropped the hottest track with 10. Tom, I wish I could say the N-word McDonald. You should check it out. We did. Thank you. Sriracha Good. Bernie needs to eat his secret stone and charge the left's master sword until 2028 when someone worthy appears to wield it. I'm not familiar with all that lore. Pax 3757. Could you guys explain an overview of the consequences for Israel if they don't comply with this ruling? There are no. I imagine the ICJ could. Issue something, but I think it's really more just it's political. I mean, that's the thing with international law.
It also will set precedent for potentially prosecuting Netanyahu and others.
It may make it hard for some people to travel. Kowalski, Tim Pool invited Emma onto his show for constructive dialogue. And what does she do? Circumcises him live on his own show while his producers became traumatized watching.
I'm traumatized by your I am.
Yeah, that is not appropriate. She's not a moil. Hunks me off. You heard it here
I've never
first.
been described as a moil. You're right.
You heard it here first. Candace is edging.
She did say that, yep.
What does that mean?
It's a sexual thing.
Yeah.
Oh,
Getting right up to the edge, but not doing it. Right?
Correct, yeah.
All right.
That's what porn stars do to.
Oh, all right. Okay. Omega. She didn't break up with me. It was a mutual dumping. Sush Poker with the Boys, Civil War, September, Hail Hydra, Tim Pool, Lady Ballers, YouTube.
Because they're all getting lapped by Brett Cooper now.
3 more.
Oh, is that the guy? The
Oh, the young lady who does the Daily Wire stuff now. She's the only one that does numbers these days.
Phineas Herb. So now we're not sophisticated enough if we're not willing to cynically give into a reality based upon a majority of Americans want to protect Western capitalist interests through the duopoly at the expense of abject suffering worldwide. There are reasons not to vote Biden outside of being dumb or pro-fascist, Sam. I don't have to be Palestinian to empathize with them. But yeah, no, I agree with that. Biden has a long history of more than a little bit of racism and against more than specifically Arab people, Emma. That's also true.
I would, yeah. I mean, I just meant it was, of course. I never said it to the exclusion of other groups.
Again, this is voting about this isn't about individuals, it's about coalitions. But continue on about how Biden is bad that we all know.
Apologies for the antagonism. I don't blame anyone for voting for Biden in spite of recognizing his unfettered support for genocide, but genocide should at least be alarming enough to not condescend or patronize to those who refuse to.
We never have.
I don't think we've done that. Listen,
that.
I wouldn't even be talking about voting were it not for the fact that you brought it up as a way of saying, how could you vote for Biden? And look, the bottom line is this. Again, I'm not going to get into it. One of two people are going to win on that day. And unless somebody dies or has a heart attack or whatever it is, it's going to be Biden or Trump. And you should vote for the person who you want of those two, because those are the only two who are going to win. If you think that Joe Biden should not be president and Donald Trump should be, then you vote for Donald Trump. That doesn't mean that you love Donald Trump. That means that you think that his presidency and everything that entails, all the Republicans coming in, those 40,000 positions in the government, all the agency heads, all the ability to sign off on judges, is better than if Biden's coalition wins. We can have that argument, but
also we've not been having. That's a mischaracterization of our. We literally played this week, I think, that focus group with Muslims in Michigan saying it's tough for me to vote for Biden, and our message was you can't just hector these people into voting for them. Like it's a mischaracterization, and it's really annoying. That's what you should be apologizing for.
The amazing thing to me is that, like, this is not a conversation I wanted to have for like 8 months.
People just can't help themselves.
I get sucked into it. Buckets and buckets. You don't know how hard this is.
18 minutes into the show, you already mentioned.
Buckets and buckets. First, the dumbest attempted coup ever. Now the dumbest attempted civil war ever. Strange times. But the coup was real. The Civil War thing is just pretend. Yeah. Murray the Orc. This Tim Pool clock, honest to God, sounds like a Tim Robinson sketch. I am losing it. All right, and the final I am of the week. A Square. Oh my God, that Tim Pool clip with the background music was so good. Perfect for the fun half. Bradley, Matt, Emma, great job this week. Also, great job to John Aarons and the booking, and Dorsey on our YouTube, and Chris, and Maria on the YouTube, and Isaac, and Julie, Kelly. Folks, what's that? Oh, yeah, Corey and Jacob on the AM Quickie. You can get that at amquickie.com. Folks, see you on Monday. Oh, and don't forget to check out, wait, is there any more tickets?
I think they're sold out, but if people check the Discord if they still want it, and you can come on the day, San Francisco, Sunday. I will be there with Francesca Fiorentini, the Bituation Room. An hour before, there should be tickets open to the general public. So if it's not too inconvenient and you'd really like to come, you can come at an hour before the event and probably pick up some tickets the day of sale.
See you on Monday.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the lie.